Give me big old buckets of butter beer. Give me big old barrels of butter beer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here of the sweet old butter beer.
Welcome to the Three Broomsticks. We invite you to pull up a chair, grab a butterbeer, and settle in for a hearty discussion about Harry Potter. I'm Sierra Obermark.
I'm Sam Williams.
And I'm Ev McLaughlin. And today joining us is our amazing editor, Patrick. Hi, Patrick.
Hello, everybody.
Great to have you back.
I am back since the infamous Percy Jackson episodes where I caused us to have 2 episodes instead of 1. Oops. I promise we won't do that this time. We'll fit it all in one big chunk.
We'll just have to see what happens, I guess.
Right.
Ev's here for the long haul.
Well, I've made my cup of tea, so I'm all good. You know, we can take our time. So, Patrick, do you want to remind our listeners about your Hogwarts house, Journey to Potter, favorite book, favorite character, just in case somebody's joining us at this point in time and they haven't heard of it?
Sure. Well, first of all, if anyone's listening to this and they are unaware, which is totally cool, thank you for joining us. My name is Patrick Musilek, and I am the editor of this here podcast, of which we are currently recording.
Yes.
I've edited every episode of this show except for one episode that our wonderful Aurelia edited instead for me, because I couldn't do it at that time. So I'm the editor, and I am excited to be here on this show. I have to say, I don't recall when we had our big sort of meeting for planning out the year, I don't recall volunteering to do this. So I don't know why I'm here exactly.
You've been voluntold.
Yeah. In looking at the doc, I do think it's good to have, a variety of opinions on the show. And I am here for my specific opinion, I think. So that's going to be great. We'll get to that in a second. So yes, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, but as everyone who follows Three Broomsticks will know, I have not really read the books in over a decade. I just allow my Harry Potter enjoyment to be sort of fused into my body through the podcasts. Along with editing Three Broomsticks, I also have been editing Alohomora for almost 13 years now.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who are, I'm sure, familiar with Three Broomsticks are familiar with Alohomora, so I work on that show as well. My Hogwarts house, I am a Ravenclaw, and I'm pretty fine with that. At first, I was so sure I was going to be Hufflepuff, and I obsessed over that so much, I realized, okay, yeah, I guess I am a Ravenclaw.
That would be a very Ravenclaw thing to do.
I put way too much thinking into it, and I was like, okay, I guess it was right. My favorite book is Order of the Phoenix, of course, because it's the best book. Duh.
It is.
Yes, thank you.
Favorite character, I'm excited to be on an episode finally with Ev, because I don't think I've done an episode with you yet, Ev, have I?
Well, apart from the one where we were all together for the All Hosts one.
Oh, sure. No, I didn't make that one, did I? For this last year, did I?
I think you did.
I think you were there,
did.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we were all there.
You know what? Here's something else people might know about me. I have cancer, so just forgive the fact that I might misremember things or not remember things at all. It's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, because on the Percy Jackson episodes, too, I joked about that I might be dead before they came out. I do recall that.
You did, and it was awful.
But here we are, right? We're still here.
Yes, here we are. And we will continue that way.
Anyway, the reason I bring up Ev specifically is because one of her favorite characters is also Harry Potter. So I always feel like that's a great. My favorite character is Harry Potter. I don't think I said that specifically, but yeah, my favorite character is Harry, and so I always feel like. And actually, I feel like just in having edited the episodes, all the episodes, I feel like Ev is I think maybe the host that I sort of align with the most on the way I kind of feel about things. So thank you, Ev, for representing me, whether you knew it or not.
Oh, you're welcome. I had absolutely no idea. So That's so fun to hear. Thank you for telling me that.
Voice of reason. There's some practicality. There's some common sense there. I like that. I also have to say, just because it's something we always joke about when I talk about Harry Potter, my two least favorite characters, and this is with a bit of a hearty har around it, are Hermione and Lupin. I always joke about that. I really don't care for those characters that much, but to say they're my least favorite characters, I mean, come on, there's a lot less significant characters that probably have no point. But yes, I do like to joke about how I don't like Lupin and I don't really care for Hermione that much. So I'll throw that out at the beginning here during my intro.
It's Colin Creevy, and then it's Hermione and Lupin.
Yeah, well, I actually enjoy Colin because I was a photographer for a little while, so he touches me in my heart. Whereas Hermione is just annoying the entire time, and Lupin is the only teacher that actively, specifically tries to kill the entire trio at one go. So definitely.
I think Irvin would have some qualms about Hagrid became a teacher.
Yeah, but he didn't actively try to kill them. Not all at the same time, Maybe individually during certain lessons, but not all at once. But anyway, that's kind of more of a fun thing than anything. Like I always say, One is my least favorite Metallica song. But anyway, I'll digress on that. I do want to say one thing, and I'll take just a few seconds here at the beginning of the episode. I just want to let everybody who's listening know that this show is very special to me, but I'm going to have to be leaving for a little while because I mentioned that I've got cancer. I've got leukemia. I talked about it in one of the episodes last year, and I believe one of the hosts mentioned it when I first was diagnosed at the very beginning of 2024, and I missed that episode that I mentioned Aurelia had to edit for me. So yes, I do. I have leukemia. I've been battling it for a year, and at the end of last year, so we're talking towards the end of 2024, I was told that I was going to need a bone marrow transplant. And so we are now to that point. At the end of March here, I'm going to be going into the hospital. And the whole process of recovery takes around 100 days. And because I live far enough from the hospital where it's not an operation, where the transplant will be taking place and then where I'll be recovering for a while in the hospital, I actually have to move to the city and to a hotel or some place in the city that's within a 30-minute drive of the hospital for an additional 70 days. So that's how it comes out to about 100 days. And so I want to let all the listeners know that that's going to be happening, first of all. So if you want to, you can send me your good thoughts and your vibes and everything. I appreciate that. And I also wanted to let everybody know that the episodes are going to be taken over by a new person that we have that joined our team here. Her name is Brittany, and she is very new to editing podcasts. And so I just want to let all the listeners know and ask everyone to be a little bit patient. I have all the faith in the world that she's going to do a wonderful job, but she is starting her podcast editing journey with us. And so we're kind of throwing her in the deep end, but I've been working with her on how to use some of the audio editing programs and things, and she has been doing editing before. She's really into D&D, and she has a D&D group, and she has been recording some of their sessions for the last few years, and she goes and does some minimal editing to their sessions, more for sort of like archival purposes, basically, rather than releasing it. But she does have a lot of experience doing that. And so I think all of that will translate really well. And like I said, I've been working with her, and I have all the faith in the world that she's going to do a great job. But I just ask everybody to be a little bit patient if it takes a couple of episodes for her to dial everything in perfectly. But since we do our show every 2 weeks, and if I'm going to be gone for 3 months or thereabout, I'll only be missing 4 or 5 episodes, 6 episodes. And it's possible I might be able to come back because at some point I'm going to take my computer and everything with me. And so I'll just have to see how I feel. But I just wanted to let all the listeners know this show is very important to me, and it's helped me a lot through some difficult times over the last year. And I, like everybody that works on this podcast, do it because I enjoy it and because I want to be here. This is not, none of us make a living doing this, and we all do it because we enjoy being here and we want to talk about Harry Potter and all the other cool stuff that we talk about on this show. Yeah. And so I'll be coming back, and hopefully sooner rather than later, and you'll all have to deal with me again. But I just wanted to sort of throw that message out there for everybody and say goodbye. Now talk for 2 hours. So.
Well, Patrick, we wish you the best on your journey here, bud. We're all pulling for you. We're all in your corner.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to finally have to break down and put the Slack app on my phone so I can finally actually get notifications from you guys and keep in touch way more, because I've been avoiding that for years. I just got a new phone at the end of last year, and it now is compatible with the Slack app, and so I have no excuse anymore. But before my phone was sold, it wouldn't work with Slack, so that'll be good. It'll be good to stay in touch with everybody. So
that'd be great.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're at home, please join us in raising a glass or a wand in the spirit of Patrick and wishing him well on his recovery. To Patrick, a kinder man you could not find.
Thank you.
And on with the episode. Today, For episode 57, we've gathered to discuss the HBO show and our speculations or confirmed facts about it. Our recommended reading is every single article that's out there, and also to watch Sierra and my videos on YouTube, where we have Dreamcast the show, like a lot of different people, a lot of different roles, a lot of different actors.
Oh, yeah.
Part 1's out, and we've got some mini videos out there as well. We've also done a rapid reaction to John Lithgow's casting, etc. You can find those on video. You can find those videos on YouTube. But also, as Aurelia would say, oh, she's not here with us. Sorry. We're not your mother, unless you are.
I can't imagine there is a mother anywhere that is going to be like, no, you have to go and watch YouTube before you can listen to this podcast. Watch YouTube or else.
Watch YouTube or else.
I have to say, there was a part of me that really wanted to be annoying and go on, and which HBO show you're talking about, Sam?
Oh my God.
As if there was like another one we could be really discussing on Three Broomsticks. But yeah, it's the Harry Potter HBO show.
I mean, we're here to talk about The Last of Us, right? That's just coming out this month,
100%. Right? It's The Last of Us. It's coming out soon.
I hear there's something about a golf club,
Something.
Man, this is awkward. I haven't seen any of this.
Who doesn't want to talk about a golf club for 3 hours? Yeah, I'm very unprepared for that one.
Oh, I could talk the entire 2.5 hours on Last of Us, but that's all right. We're here for Harry Potter. That's okay. That's another episode.
And since we are in the Three Broomsticks, about to talk about Harry Potter, firstly, I would like to thank Katie Riken over on our Patreon, who bought this round of drinks for all of us at the pub. So thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Woo.
Apologies if I pronounced your name and or surname wrong, but I did my best. And if you'd like to buy us a round at the pub, head over to patreon.com/3broomsticks with numeral 3 to sign up. We're offering loads of bonus content, chats with the hosts, and on episode shoutouts, just like we did for Katie right now. And we would really appreciate your help in keeping the lights on in the Three Broomsticks, or Rosmerta will kick us out. Don't pay for stuff. So please support us if you like the show. Thanks, guys.
Oh, can I say, whenever I'm on an episode, I always want to say, because I'm not afraid to shill us, I just want to let everybody know, it really does help us when people support us, whether that's just listening, if you can like something, leaving a comment, or the best thing you could obviously do would be to join our Patreon, because that just goes right to us. Again, it's not the only thing you can do, and we appreciate everything, but Patreon is very important. And whether you can tell it or not, if you're not a Patreon member, you probably don't know, but there has been a very there's been a very concentrated effort.
Concerted.
It might be conceited in some ways.
Concerted effort.
We're just so full of ourselves.
We're trying really hard to make the Patreon extra awesome for everybody this year. And everybody's been doing such a great job doing a lot of extra content. And so if you're even curious at all, I'm pretty sure you can go there and sign up for the lowest tier, right? And you can see a lot of all the backlog of everything we have on there, right?
Yeah.
That's how that works. Yeah. So you get access to tons of stuff right away, and then we're always adding new things. So everyone else might be too modest to say it, but I'll say, please join our Patreon, think about it. And we have lots of good stuff there, and there will be lots of good things to come. I promise.
Awesome.
And if you're curious about what's coming up, Sierra's been really great on social media for posting the coming up soon Patreon announcements. So you can sort of keep an eye on that and see if that sounds interesting to you. And if it does, then come join us at the Three Broomsticks.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo. Speaking of drinks, Sam.
Let us raise a toast to the comments on episode 54. The episode was Shipping Draco Malfoy, and we raise our glass to commenter Snitches Get Stitches, an all-time favorite name of mine, who
Snitches
said,
get snitches.
Oh my gosh.
We have this every time, too.
I can never remember. I always think it's snitches get snitches. I mean, stitches. Oh, whatever. It's fine. Hi, you're an awesome commenter, and I appreciate your name, whatever version it is.
One time you said it right, and you didn't even mean it.
Snitches get stitches. Who said? The question that must be answered is, why didn't Hermione take this option? This option being, why didn't she do the 12 OWLs, which you can do without a time turner? So snitches get snitches goes on to say, well, to me, that is clear. Hermione wouldn't even consider going into the first day of class without being fully prepared. So sitting for an exam on a subject she didn't take would be out of the question. Textual support comes for this comes in the form of Hermione reading all her textbooks before the year even starts. Think Lockhart's quiz and her repeating verbatim text in Umbridge's first class. And how appalled she is when Harry uses the Half-Blood Prince's potions books instead of the official instructions. I could see the conversation with McGonagall in my head now. Her telling Hermione that she can study on her own and take all the OWOs her little heart desires. But Hermione almost has a nervous breakdown at the very thought of such an atrocity. This would then justify the extreme circumstances that lead to a time turner being used. Yeah, I feel like that's all accurate. Like, I don't know that there's much for me to say.
I think yes, but also no. And here's why I would slightly... I think the general idea of Hermione always needs to be fully prepared for things, yes. However, the fact that she does read all of her textbooks and can quote them, before class even starts, I know that she would want additional lessons after reading the book, but I do feel like she could at least... have those books read, and I almost wonder if she could just sit in on a couple things and then just continue on with the regular class load. I mean, she even takes Muggle studies, and she knows all that information. She just thinks it's interesting. She totally could have just sat in audited Muggle studies and then taken a different class instead. But I can see, I do get how she has to be really prepared all the time. I had a separate question as you were reading this comment. Do we think that Hermione has an eidetic memory? Because she can quote things verbatim and pull specific texts out after maybe one or two readings and stuff. I can pull quotes out of things if I've read them a whole bunch or have heard it over and over and over, but it's harder for me to do that, especially in a textbook, off of one or two readings. Yeah.
I think she might do, and there is a reading of Hermione as neurodivergent, which, maybe not eidetic memory, but some people would have very, very good memory, especially for something that they're very interested in. So it is possible, I think, from what we see of her. But also looking at this comment, I've been thinking it does make sense from the point of view how Hermione's mind works, but I don't think that's a good reason to give her a time turner. So if I would take an issue with McGonagall going along with this, if that was the case, because I think her duty as a head of house would be to almost... sometimes you have to encourage students, but sometimes you also have to pull them back a little bit. And I think Hermione is a student that you need to pull back a little bit. And that was the time to do it. Yeah. So I'm not sure what McGonagall was playing at, if that was the reason why Hermione got the time turner. I'm not sure about this one.
we know that Bill and Percy both got 12 OWLs, I believe. Are we arguing that Bill and Percy were also given time turners? Because that would be the only way for them to get...
No.
Then how did they get their 12 OWLs?
You can take a test of a class that you haven't. They might not have taken 12 classes, but they could have done independent study and then taken the test.
Yes.
So, Ev, are you saying that Hermione didn't choose to do that option, and that was good? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying she should have chosen that option if she wanted loads of OWLs.
Instead of doing the time turner.
Instead of doing them all with the time turner, and McGonagall shouldn't have given her time turner in the first place. If that was the reason for it, that she just so uptight about not being prepared for every single class and not going to every single class. That's my take on this.
Yeah, I'm right there with y'all, especially around the fact that like Hermione seems to have an ability to recall like the eidetic memory. That seems to make sense to me. I'm not sure if it's specifically like she can recall with only looking at it once with high precision, or if she's just so practiced. It's kind of like the difference between having perfect pitch and ability to recall a music note by name in an instant, or having very good relative pitch where somebody plays one note and then you bump up from there or down depending. So I'm not really sure which one it is for her, but I do think that speaking to like her teenage insecurity, I think it makes perfect sense that she would be like, oh my gosh, no, I can't. That seems very Hermione to me. I think after book 7, I want it to be even canon, although it's not my head canon, that she, in her 7th year, is like, oh yeah, can I take those other 2 OWL exams I didn't take? And their Newt exams? I've got this. Because she seems like her confidence would have busted up a lot more.
Yeah, I can see her trying to do that.
Excellent. So, Patrick, your favorite character, are you ready to move on from her?
Yeah. I mean, I was just trying to think, she reads all of her books before the first, I think she reads through all of her textbooks every year, right? That's not just the first year before she goes in.
Yeah.
Because my initial thought was, well, she reads all of her textbooks the first year because she is afraid she's not going to fit in or be smart enough, and she sort of overcompensates for that. However, she continues to do that. I don't, in terms of the eidetic memory thing, I don't think that she has an eidetic memory because there are instances where she does forget about certain things. Now, usually that's in a high pressure situation. So I would think lean towards the fact that she's just a very smart person and she has really good recall, but maybe not necessarily an eidetic memory. Because I do think if you like, I don't have any experience personally with a person that has an eidetic memory, but I think a lot of those people sort of exhibit symptoms of having like maybe difficulty in other areas of life. And I think Hermione's a very well-rounded person other than, she totally sucks, like I said earlier, but I think in general, she's a pretty well-rounded person. And that's honestly one of my biggest critiques of her, as I've said before, I think even on Three Broomsticks, like all of Hermione's flaws are admirable faults. She doesn't have anything that is like a negative aspect of her character that's not something you can be like, oh gosh, she just loves too much. Boy, she just doesn't like oppression. Boy, she just wants everyone to be treated equal. And anything she does have that's somewhat negative is sort of like a personal thing, like, oh, she studies too hard or she, whatever. So, but I do think that her character is such that if she did have an eidetic memory, which I think would be an interesting thing for her to have, her character, I think, would be written differently than it is to maybe show that a little bit more, some of that.
Yeah. I like that, yeah.
So I do think that she, in that regard, she doesn't. In terms of taking the owls, I think she could have aced all the owls, probably, honestly. I don't think anyone needed any more time turners in the series at all, so I don't mind there not being that. Did she chose which classes she was going to take like owls for at the end of 4th year, or was that at the beginning of 5th year?
At the end of second year, you take extra classes, and that's why she does the time turner thing in book 3.
Well, right, but we were talking about her owls though, right?
Yeah, but all of those classes are what you end up taking for owls.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was going to say, depending on the timeline of that, I wasn't too sure exactly. There were a lot of things going on at the time that could, in the 5th year, obviously, since that's the year she takes her owls, she would have probably elected to do as little as possible because there was so much other stuff going on. Yeah. And then at the end of the 4th year, there's a bunch of crazy stuff going. But you're right. They choose which classes they're going to take. And then that's when she drops divination and everything in the 3rd year. So yeah. Or in the 4th year, which I think she drives it. But anyway, yeah, whatever. Yeah, we can move on from Hermione. I'm sure we'll talk about her later. I'm sure we'll talk more about Hermione and Lupin later. Sure, lots of Lupin love will come.
We definitely will talk about her later because, listeners, we have, I'm not sure exactly when, but later in the year, I think we have an episode planned titled tentatively, What If Hermione Was Evil? Which I'm really looking forward to because I actually disagree with Patrick on her being a particularly well-rounded character.
Okay.
So we'll have loads of Hermione talk then.
Yeah.
So
Bring
we'll
your
return to
boxing
this.
gloves.
I know. I do actually like her. I just don't think she's as great as people make her out to be. I think she's more interesting.
See, Ev,
she's more interesting.
You took a twist there at the end. You're like, I don't think she's as great as people think she is. I'm like, yes, stand up and applaud. You know, but then you're like, but whatever. But she's really great. It's like, okay, whatever. In general, I agree with you, though. I do. My when I say Lupin and Hermione are my least favorite characters, what I really mean is they're, to me, the most overrated characters. I think there are other characters that deserve some of the attention that gets put on them, but that's all right.
Oh yeah, they definitely are. Yeah, they're a lot more flawed, but I think that's a point of interest rather than something against them necessarily.
At some point, Patrick, we should do a not a who's best to worst characters, but we should do a who's properly rated, overrated, and underrated list.
Yeah, that would be great.
That would be
Yeah.
interesting.
Yes,
That could be fun.
very fun.
Really fun.
Absolutely
Cool. An idea for another time.
We could also do. I've been doing a bit of research into like list things, like how, because I've wanted us to do an official Three Broomsticks ranking of the books.
Yeah.
And I came across a really cool ranking system recently where we would have to like calculate a certain number, like let's say 30 or 40 characters. And this would be really hard, but everyone would have to rank them from like worst to best. We'd have to come up with the parameters. But so you have or let's say, to keep it simple, let's say 10. 10 characters, you rank them from worst to best. Everybody on the team fills out the list. And then what you do is you assign a point system so that whoever you put as your 10th person gets 1 point, whoever you put as your first most liked person gets 10 points, and then you add up all those points, and then that's how who wins comes out on top, and it's a fair way for everybody to get a say in every character. And I think if we do stuff like that, if we do any ranking or listing videos in the future, or episodes or whatever, I think that'd be very fun for us to do some of that stuff, because we'd all get so mad at each other and it'd be wonderful.
Patrick loves editing yelling, so he's very excited for that.
I do. I've lived through some of the crazy Alohomora episodes that Irvin was on. I am very familiar with how that stuff goes down, and I love it.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
All right, well, speaking of full episodes that we should probably get to the main topic of, we are going to move smoothly without zero transition hiccups into the main discussion. What on earth is going on with this HBO show? Are we excited? Who's being cast? What's going on? The full 9 yards. Could take it away, Ev. Oh, God, or baby.
Who ironically is also HBO. He just has to have an opinion.
His initials are literally HBO.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'd forgotten that. All right, so Last of Us, here we go. Ev, what are your opinions about the sneaker zombies?
I'm sorry, what?
I was pretending to take us to the Last of Us conversation again. Anyways, go ahead with the HBO Harry Potter.
Which is a problem because I have not seen this. So, going back to the HBO show that we are here to talk about, the Harry Potter HBO show coming to us in probably 2027, unless they change it again.
Cough, yeah, right.
Yeah, but to sort of kick us off, how does everybody generally feel about it? Are we excited? Do we care? Are we going to watch it? What do people think? So, personally, I am cautiously looking forward to it. I want to see what they do with it. I'm not quite as invested in the little crumbs that they're trying to leave for us pre the show actually coming out, as obviously I do love talking to you guys, and I'm looking forward to what you have to say. And once other people are speculating, I want to speculate. But if it was just me, kind of in isolation, I would probably just wait for the show to come out and just go into it fresh, because some of the stuff that they kind of give us, like a new person being cast or something like this, sometimes there is kind of a lot of excitement or a lot of outrage, and I kind of feel, well, you know what? It's often impossible to say how this person is actually going to look once they are in costume, in makeup, in the role, actually doing the role, in the setting, in the environment that they're going to build for them.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to tell. And I just kind of want to see what they do. So this is kind of where I am. So I definitely going to watch it. I am looking forward to it. I'm trying not to get too bogged down in the, small bits that they're kind of throwing our way. I hope they're not going to delay it too long, though. What about everyone else?
I am also cautiously optimistic. I feel like that's my party line for any time anything is adapted. It's just, I'm not going to say it's going to be good or it's going to be bad or anything like that. I'm very cautious. I would hope that I'm going to end up liking it. I will watch it, obviously. So I will definitely be watching it. I'm cautiously optimistic that it's going to, do really well and kind of fix some of the things from the movies, or, embellish, have inclusions that I am, looking forward to. But I also know that adapting something is incredibly difficult, and there's no way that they're going to be able to make everybody happy all the time. So I'm not I will not have the expectation that I'm going to love every single choice. I am very into all the tiny things, as you will hear about, or if you're on our social media, you already know Sam and I are all over it. But yeah, very, very into all the little details, just because I like kind of having all that information going in. Although it is very entertaining for me when I do watch a movie and I don't realize who the cast is. And then I'm like, oh, that's that guy. Oh, wait, that's that person. But in this case, I am excited because kind of like you were saying, you never know what it's going to actually be like when they're in costume and makeup and in the setting and fully invested in the character. And so, and even what the setting is going to be and what they're going to reuse and not reuse and all that stuff. So I am following all those details just to kind of build my little well of knowledge. And then when it happens, I'll be like, oh, that's how they, transformed, or that's how they reused this set or something like that. So that's me.
This is a total joke, because I don't actually assign any sort of why this is being done per gender, but typical of us men to take very polar binary options here. Both of you were cautiously looking forward, cautiously optimistic, and Patrick and I are we have feelings. I am super excited, mainly because this is what I studied in grad school. When I got my master's in creative writing, I studied literature to film adaptation. So I'm super excited from a nerd standpoint, where I'm oh, interesting. They turned this sort of chapter into a bit here, and they did this, and they made this motif happen this way, and here's the casting choices, and you're talking about, Sari, the minutia of all the tiny details.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Sir Cadogan's armor is not actually the right period for when he should have died based off of the textual knowledge in the books that we have. That's crazy. And all that sort of stuff I'm very much looking forward to. Also, from an adaptation standpoint, we, occasionally you get these sort of big stories that just get retold over and over and over. And that's not a new thing. It's new into the frequency and how many years in between. But like we've been redoing Shakespeare plays for forever, and directors make their casting and their set designs and all this stuff based off of all different things. Like Patrick Stewart's Macbeth is set during World War I or World War II. Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet is set in the late 1800s, when it's supposed to. Both of those stories are like the 1100s and 1200s in Denmark and Scotland, respectively.
Are we having Harry Potter adaptation as if they were all gangsters now? What's happening?
Romeo and Juliet set in Venice Beach.
Say DiCaprio.
Yeah, Harry is going to be DiCaprio.
Yeah, I hope so. No, that would be
We're
funny.
going to just not mention the fact that he's not 11 years old.
No.
Gosh, if they CGI him like they CGI'd that one rock star who was just a chimpanzee the whole time, I will be upset.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's like the joke that they should make another Home Alone and just cast Macaulay Culkin, but like as if he's a kid and just never mention that, just ignore that he's an adult.
That's really funny. Anyways, so I'm really excited for all that stuff. I think with Shakespeare's plays, you're going to have stuff like with Batman, which we get multiple adaptations all the times, and now we're going to have that with Harry Potter for here on out. And it may be that when Ev and I are in our 80s and 90s, that they're doing Gangs of New York style Harry Potter. So we'll see.
I hope I'll be dead by then. I don't think I want to see that.
Ooh, okay, Patrick, how are you feeling about the show?
Okay, so I think, Sam, that is very nice of you to have such expectations and to come at from that particular angle. However, I think that is a lot of, I don't even know how to word this because that's so just not at all how I'm thinking about this. Okay. My opinion of this is that I do not like the idea of this show existing, and I wish it wasn't happening. I am one of those people. I really, 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 really enjoy the books, and I even enjoy the movies as well. Yeah. But I don't really think that anything of value has been added to the Harry Potter series since the day the final movie premiered in theaters. With the exception of a few things. Obviously, there are certain things that, I personally love Hogwarts Legacy. I think that is what I wish would be done with the Harry Potter universe. Allow other creative people to dip their hand into the bucket that JKR created, use the tools that she created to make a new thing in her world. That's what I want. Yeah. I don't need this. It is not necessary in my opinion at all. I can see the idea of, I'm also sort of conflicted because I do think that if it was going to be done by anybody, thank the Lord it's not Disney. That's one thing I'd say.
Oh my gosh.
Thankfully it's not Disney. Obviously Warner Brothers at HBO are the same thing pretty much, right? Warner Brothers owns HBO, I think, right?
Yes. Time Warner.
Right.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that it's HBO. And personally, a lot of my favorite TV shows are HBO shows. I love Game of Thrones. I love The Last of Us. I love Deadwood. I love Carnival. I think there's some other ones I'm forgetting. I haven't seen. You know what? I'm even going to say I love True Detective, even though I've never seen it, but I'm pretty sure that show's badass. So I trust HBO to do certain things really well.
Same.
Now, the thing is, everything that I just mentioned there, every one of those shows is kind of like a darker, more adult thing. So, okay, HBO did Golden Compass, right? His Dark Materials, but they never finished the third season, right? It got canceled before that, I think.
I thought they finished it. I know that the season 3 came out. I don't remember if they actually got to the end or not.
If it did, maybe it was last year and I missed it amidst all the stuff I was doing. But I really enjoyed the first 2 seasons of that show, and even though they did make some crazy changes, I like the way it was done. But again, very much still for adults / older teens. And so if that is the way HBO is going to, and we'll get into this, I think, a little further down. If that's the way that HBO is going to treat this, then I think I'll be a little bit more for it. However, my general point on this is that I do think a majority of the Harry Potter content that has come out since the final movie was released in theaters has not really added very much of value to the overall Harry Potter. Like, it just seems to be so much fluff, and even some of it really detracting. Like, it was very hard for me to continue being a person in this space, the Harry Potter fandom, after Cursed Child was released, because when Cursed Child was released, like, all faith I had that anything good could come from this ever again was just wiped from me completely. And I was very close to just being like, no, sir, I'm gone, heading out the door, never looking back. But like I said, I am a big fan of Hogwarts Legacy. So there have been good things to come out, and things that I do think have really a lot of value. So we'll just have to see. Now, maybe when we talk about this stuff, you guys will get me a little excited for the show, but we'll just have to see. In terms of will I watch the show or not, I think, like my record will show, I watched the first Fantastic Beasts movie and I was like, I'm good. I have never seen the other two, not a second of them. And so that's fine. I can, right, for sure. But what I'm saying is I can control myself. I was a Harry Potter uber fan. I grew up as Harry grew up reading the books.
Yeah.
I read it in the most pure way a person can. Like I said, growing up with Harry. That's not to say that people who've discovered or read the books or enjoy them their own way in a different way is any better than the way I did it or worse than the way I did it. I'm just saying I am the person that I think HBO is making this show for. However, I have not been very satisfied with a vast majority of the stuff that's come out of the Harry Potter fandom world, whatever we're talking, the Harry Potter IP for the last, like I said, since the final movie came out. And so I will probably watch several episodes. And if there are multiple times when I'm watching them and I'm just like aghast at what I'm seeing and I can't believe and I'm frustrated, I will have no problem not watching the rest of the show. Now, the hard thing is going to be if we still have this show going, which we probably will. That's the hope. I'm going to have to edit whole 2.5-hour episodes of you guys talking about how great the show is. So we'll just see what happens when it comes to that point. But that's sort of how I sort of generally feel. And I will say, if it's not good, I will not watch it. And I'm not just blowing smoke there. I have not seen the Fantastic Beasts movie, and that is a testament to the fact that if it's not good, I don't want to consume. So,
yeah.
If it makes you feel any better, Patrick, I don't think any firm decisions have been made so far on the podcast level on whether we're recording full episodes about the show once it does come out, as opposed to Patreon content. So you might be editing less.
See. And it's okay.
Hours and hours.
Unfortunately, I've had the entire Strike series ruined for me for editing those episodes, but it's
yes.
I'm not complaining. I had the option. Irvin told me we can get someone else to edit. No, it's okay. That's more of a joke than anything, because I'll edit whatever. It doesn't matter. But we'll just have to see what happens. I hope I'm excited and I like it, because I will say too, another thing that is kind of important for me as a personal factor in this is that my nephew, whose name is Hunter, he is 14. He just turned 14 yesterday. And he is not a reader. I've been trying to get him into the Harry Potter books since he was 10. And we actually recorded some episodes of like a podcast we were going to do, going through and reading the books with him and getting his reaction and everything. And he just isn't into reading yet. And that's fine. I got into reading a little later too. Harry Potter's the thing that got me into reading. And I tried to get him into it. But I can see a real situation where if he has a way to, my sister does not have HBO, so they don't have like a way to watch HBO stuff. But I can see a situation where if my nephew Hunter, who will be 15, 16 as this show's coming out, and presumably, into a young adult as it's coming out, and he loves this show, this could be his version of Harry Potter, which I'll either have to live with or fight him to the death over what's the real Harry Potter. You know what I mean? And so kind of like you were saying, Sam, like it's fun to see things get revived. It happens all the time throughout history. Your Shakespeare example is a great example of that. But for me personally, I don't think it's time for this yet. I wish it was a different medium other than just like live action. And we'll see what ends up happening. So that's my bottom line, and I'll let us move on now.
I mean, just to follow up on your point there, because this is what I'm going to say for this next question anyways, who is the show being made for? I think this show is specifically being made for people like Hunter. And the teenagers and preteens and just old enough to kind of start watching a show like this generation. Just looking at the history of kind of how this show got started, we had the Fantastic Beasts series that came out. A lot of people were just like, oh, this is basically going to be like Pokemon Go in Harry Potter form. Really excited for a light movie like this. And then it turns out, no, it's actually like kind of a precursor to the whole Grindelwald Dumbledore situation. And then we have all the controversies that come out. Rowling controversy, Ezra Miller's controversy, Johnny Depp's controversy, sort of tanks. Warner Brothers at the time and Time Warner are not having a good time with any of their big franchises in terms of creating long-lasting franchises like Star Wars or the MCU, stuff that Disney's holding on to. So Time Warner tries to do the whole monsters universe where they do Invisible Man and something else. I forgot what came out first. Mummy. But basically, they do that movie. Mummy. They do Mummy, and it tanks. And then they do the Invisible Man after they've already canceled the entire franchise. And it would be like if you had released the Hulk before Iron Man, that's essentially what they did. Because Invisible Man is fantastic, critically acclaimed, beloved by fans, all that sort of stuff. But if you had launched the Hulk first, Marvel at the time might have been like, you know what, never mind, we're not going to do this.
Right.
But so that Monsters universe fails. The DC universe with Batman and Superman and Zack Snyder isn't doing so hot, clearly losing to MCU's numbers, and also isn't as beloved by critics or by fans. And then we've got Fantastic Beasts, which go through all these controversies, and then the second movie's pretty bloated. The third movie, there's clearly a struggle between the writers and the producers and everything going on there. And then Time Warner gets a new CEO. That new CEO comes in and says, looking forward to working with Rowling on new Harry Potter content. Clearly signaling, all right, you know what? The Fantastic Beasts series is over. And so I think it was reported that he went out and flew to see Rowling, or at least they met in person, if memory serves correct. And then the next thing we knew is there were all these rumors about redoing the movies into a TV show. I think even Daniel Radcliffe was asked, and he's like, no, I expect it'll be remade at some point. And then tons of people tuned in for the 20th year reunion for Sorcerer's Stone, which was, I think, during the pandemic.
Yeah. And
I think that is what lit Time Warner with all those numbers and the future considerations and wanting to revitalize a franchise. Time Warner was like, it's time. Even though it's only been 10 years since the last movie, it's been 20 years since the first Potter movie came out. 20 years is the metric used by most people in business to say, when does nostalgia kick in? So they're like, all right, now it's time to start the revitalization of this franchise. And why? Book reading is way down, especially with generative AI coming in and the ability to read books for you and give little like study tips and stuff like that. So what is it? The fact that came out a couple of months ago, on average, most kids have read less than 6 books by the time they get to college. And a huge portion of them have never read a book, period.
That's horrifying.
So book readings, yeah, it's horrifying, especially as an English teacher. So, you know, if book reading's out and the movies are old and these new generations really only like sort of new content or super old content, super old for them being like the 80s, then it makes sense for them to create this new adaptation to try and spark new generations into being interested in Harry Potter so that they can grow their action figures, their posters, their books, their everything that comes with it. And I think that's who this is being made for. And at the same time, they're sort of pitching to us old folks, hey, look, we're gonna have a more faithful adaptation. Here's all this cool stuff for adults that we're doing as well.
Interesting, because I do feel like in there you came back to it, but you contradicted yourself a tiny bit by saying that nostalgia kicks in after 20 years or so, which I believe is true. But your main point, I think, was that this show is being made more for sort of younger like adults. Which obviously wouldn't have any nostalgia for Harry Potter because they would just be discovering it.
Right. Well, so I think there's a twofold thing going on there. Just to be clear, my point is this is being made by Time Warner to continue having a big franchise that young people, who are the people that buy most stuff, get into. And at the same time, they think it's right for the rest of the audience, the adult audience, to get kicked on too because it's been, quote unquote, long enough for them. So it's a twofold, double-edged sword.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Also, nostalgia-wise, I think it doesn't have to be necessarily for older people because Stranger Things been capitalizing on the 80s nostalgia, and the target audience for that was quite young, and it kind of brought the 80s back. So I think the 90s, if they keep Harry Potter in the 90s where it's supposed to be, which, you could do a bit of like a 90s nostalgia from that. So maybe that's what they're also hoping to do.
Yeah.
Unless they are trying to bring Harry Potter into modern day, and then
gangs in New York. I'm telling you.
I think I will just I don't know, move to the wilderness and never watch TV again at that point.
But I mean, that kind of one of the things about one of the great things about Harry Potter, though, is that it is kind of timeless. Once they go to Hogwarts, it doesn't really necessarily fit into any decade specifically. So they could do a modern interpretation that once they get to Hogwarts, it's not modern anymore, but they can't really capitalize on the 90s stuff too much because there's not too much said in the Muggle world to like remind us, oh, look at those, whatever snap-on bracelets that they're wearing,
Pavarti Patil is wearing a butterfly clip in Goblet of Fire.
Clips, I was going to say.
But they're not constantly texting to each other.
Right.
It's popping up on the screen as a little square with the words.
I read a thing that was like, I always forget that it takes place in the 90s because at no point did anybody go, man, Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls are really having a run.
I know. Yeah.
Right? So I think, and in terms of like the question of who's the show being made for, I definitely see the point of it also being made for the younger audience. I kind of, in my answer, I think it focuses a little bit more on the, maybe not nostalgia necessarily, but I do think that it's being made for fans of the books, more specifically fans like myself who were around Harry's age when the books were coming out. I mean, I was a little bit young when I first started reading them, but I caught up, over time. But, and there was actually an article just the other day. I'm pretty sure it was Screen Rant. I just took like a screenshot and I sent it to Sam. So I'm pretty sure that's who it was. But the quote from that article said, unfortunately, many movie fans see no need for a remake, raising questions about whom the show will appeal to. This is most evident when it comes to casting, as there's been backlash to many of the rumors and announcements to surface so far. And I immediately took a screenshot of that and texted JSam and said, it's book fans, and I'm nuts. It's appealing to book fans. It's not about being true to original casting or feeling that people can't be replaced. It's about, although they were great and iconic, most casting was not true to the books. And that's what we're afraid will happen again. Cough, cough, hot Snape replacing too old Snape. Hashtag I love you, Alan Rickman. It's not you. And I also think another reason is to, see our favorite moments and characters who may have been left out of the movies, to see them on the screen. Hashtag justice for Winky. So that I think is like the reason for me is that, because the very first thing that came out about the show was faithful adaptation. And I've kind of been clinging to that phrasing.
Yeah.
That's my cautiously optimistic standpoint, is that they want to be faithful to the original text. And so hopefully that means that all those things that were changed or got moved around or left out, that stuff is kind of corrected, not to say that it was bad to begin with, but is kind of corrected or brought into a different light so that we can actually, people who haven't read the books can watch the show and understand the full story, which I personally do not think you can do with the movies.
I will always remember with the movies friends of mine who didn't read the books and only watched the movies, of whom we were on thin ice at that point already. The sort of hammer drop of them being like, so I don't get it. Why does Neville get to kill the snake at the end? Why is he important enough for that? And being like, oh, right. Oh, man. And it starts in Sorcerer's Stone. Neville isn't out in the forest with them. And Ron isn't in the hospital wing dying of a dragon bite. Instead, it's Ron's out there with them. So, yes, I hope faithful adaptation is there as well.
But see, to me, and this is kind of where I get conflicted about it, because I also personally would like it to be a more faithful adaptation. However, that if it is, then to me that says they are marketing the show towards people like us, who I think are the biggest audience that Harry Potter has right now. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very altruistic to think that they can make the show they can make the show feel satisfactory for both people like us and people like my nephew and younger people who are maybe going to be experiencing Harry Potter for the first time. The wider the audience they're aiming for, the more diluted the show has to be. And so just so that people can understand it at its base.
Patrick, I think that you could make that argument for how difficult it was to get Game of Thrones to be as successful. You're talking about pitching not even just a light fantasy. Harry Potter is a fairly light fantasy compared to Game of Thrones is a much heavier fantasy or hard fantasy. Right. You're talking about, let's take these guys who no one's ever heard of. Let's take his books and turn them into something that appeals to the masses, to a much larger audience than you would do. And they managed to pull it off with that. So I have optimistic faith that they'll be able to sort of straddle this. And I think they're also banking on more millennials having kids by the time we get to 2027.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. I hope so. I want the show personally to be more for the adults that have grown up with Harry Potter than for newcomers. That's what I personally want it to be. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And hopefully if somebody is a newcomer, it will do what Game of Thrones, the show, did for me. So what happened to me was, I think I watched the first season, or maybe season and a half, and then I went, I wonder what's behind this all. And then I went and read all the Game of Thrones books.
Me too.
So that actually brought me to the books, and I wouldn't have read them otherwise.
I did that a little bit.
It's possible that this will happen for Harry Potter as well.
Yeah.
But again, one of HBO, Game of Thrones is made for adults, though. So it was adults discovering it, and it was made for adults. If they make this show for children, adults will not be discovering it.
I think that's the key
Sammy,
point
you had
right
that
there.
point earlier about selling merchandise. Yeah. If they want to sell merchandise, they're going to market this towards kids, because that's who buys the merchandise, parents for their kids. So,
I don't know.
There's conflicting things going on here.
I think Patrick, so the movies after movie 2, I think did a fairly good job of trying to be for everybody. And I think one of the most difficult
That's when
things
they got bad.
Okay, I highly disagree with that. Movies 3 and 5 are my favorite, and movies 1 and 2 are my least favorite. But that's beside the point.
Sure.
I think one of the most difficult things that we're seeing right now is sort of these big companies, Disney, and then all of their different components, Lucasfilm, Marvel, etc., and then Time Warner with all their different things, trying to make something that's for kids and for adults at the same time. It's hard. Indiana Jones, the first Indiana Jones movie, was made for kids. Star Wars, the first Star Wars movie, made for kids, still appealed to the everyman. And so I think that there is you cannot, I feel as though you cannot make the show for children. When you do that, you sort of soften and dumb things down. However, you can still make the show appropriate enough that children could watch it. And I think that's what you have to do. You have to make the faithful adaptation, but make it appropriate for children to watch. And if you do that, so if you skip a lot of the stuff in book 6 that Aurelia hates, we're good.
I agree with you, and I think that is the way to do it. And that's ideally that's what they do. So yes, I definitely agree with that.
I mean, if it's correctly paced, then it would be appropriate for children because the first book is aimed at 11-year-olds.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get around that. It's not Game of Thrones, which was never aimed at 11-year-olds.
Yeah.
Although I had to stop people when I used to work in a bookshop from buying Game of Thrones for their 9-year-old ones. And I was like, no, this is not what you want. And why is your 9-year-old watching Game of Thrones anyway?
Yeah.
But not my business, but yeah.
I had that same thing with, what was, so the same thing's going on with Wicked, too.
Yes.
Because Ariana Grande's in it. So then people are buying the book for their kid because Ariana Grande's on the cover of the book. That is not
a children's book.
By any means a child-appropriate book. Please, listeners, for the love of all things holy, do not buy that book for your child.
I haven't tried it, but I heard it's quite spicy.
It is. For sure, it's spicy.
Very inappropriate. It is in the adult section of a bookstore for a reason.
I think,
please.
I used to advocate for, you know how you'll put stickers on books covers sometimes, and normally I hate them. But I think it would be funny if for all of these type of things, like Game of Thrones, for Wicked and stuff like that, that you have to put some sort of like, this is not appropriate for children. Like, don't
parental
do this.
advisory sticker.
Yeah.
That's why it's in the adult section.
I know.
That's your parental advisory.
Yeah, apparently that's no longer enough. So
yeah,
People are dumb. They don't care.
No, I know. I used to work in a bookstore too. I get it.
Yeah.
But
So I think where we can run into problems with this is if they decide to go the Hobbit route and age up the lower end of the books, so the earlier part of the show, to age it up to make it all dark and gritty or whatever, which I talk about later, which I hate. But so I think that's the only way in which they can make it not child appropriate. But if they actually follow the books and do stay faithful to source material as they say they want to do, it will be automatically,
you shouldn't have a problem. Yeah,
it would be automatically appropriate for younger children, not 4-year-olds,
right,
or 5-year-olds, but
11-year-olds,
tweens,
10-year-olds,
early teens and a bit younger. Yeah,
I feel like if you would have your kid read this, so 6-7-year-olds for season 1, totally fine. That's when I got into it. But if we're like, you know what, we're going to talk about all of this later. Let's get to the what, when, and where.
Yeah, I was going to say the reason I put that question so far up in the doc, who is this for, is so we could keep that in mind as we go through the rest of the show.
That's
so
great.
let's just keep it in mind.
Yeah.
Sounds good, Patrick. Thank you.
That is a good plan. Okay, so let's go back a little bit, dial it back, and just get a bit of stats.
Facts.
Focus on
about
the
the show.
Some facts.
Focus on facts. Yes. So the show is due to premiere in early 2027 on HBO. So this is already a revised date. So take that with a pinch of salt. So it might have changed even by the time this episode comes out, and it's definitely might change next year. So it might be later. I don't know. I'm not holding my breath for early 2027, to be honest.
This new date made me feel the most concerned I have that it's actually never going to happen.
Really?
Yeah. I think that's just because, especially in the video game world, Sierra and I play a lot of the same video games.
Yeah.
She and I have seen, like, hey, this is being made, this is being made, this is being made, this is being made. And then you never hear about it again. And so
Next
I have...
Elder Scrolls will never happen.
Yeah, for real. So Sierra and I are sitting here with all this trauma of like, look at this, this is who we've got involved. And then suddenly the project disappears. And I'm just, for no reason other than just, I am harrowed by the previous, past experiences. I went, oh no, it's not going to happen. So anyways.
It's happening.
Sam, put your trauma aside.
I know they just made casting announcements, so it's going to happen, but still, I am afraid.
Yeah.
So continue being optimistically afraid. So hopefully in early 2027, as far as we know for now, this is when it's going to happen. It's going to be filmed for 10 years, or so they So they plan.
No way.
So that's why.
No way.
That's why they're going
No.
to. No, you don't think so?
No way. No. There's no way a show like this will last 10 years. No way.
So Game of Thrones was originally
no, Sam, do not talk about Game of Thrones in this context. The greatest thing on Earth was shoved in the mud and pushed down so deep it drowned in its own fluids. That's what happened to Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But that just proved. Now that was a different situation because they ran out of like the source material.
Source material, yeah.
But you cannot have a a show like this go on for 10 years. Think about John Lithgow will be 157 by the time 10 years is over.
He'll be 89.
10 years is too lofty for this. That's like saying we're going to make, that's like, well, I guess they're actually doing, that's like Ubisoft saying, or not Ubisoft, that's like Square Enix saying we're going to make Final Fantasy VII into 3 different video games and release them over the course of 15 years. By goodness, it sure looks like they're going to do that. But most companies cannot do that. You cannot stretch something out over so long. You have to be optimistic that it first of all catches on and then continues to gain popularity. At some point, this is going to crumble. You know, the whole Harry Potter thing, it's come so close so far. Everyone seems to be trying as hard as they can to make Harry Potter uncool. And so all of a sudden, they're going to do this, and if they build up a bunch of good faith, then I could see it lasting that long. But I just don't think there's no way this is going to last a decade.
I think the plan is seasons 1 and 2 equals book 1 and 2, and then you split the rest of the books into 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. 3 is seasons 3 and 4, 4, 5 and 6, 5, 7 and 8.
Has this been declared somewhere?
No, it's been rumored. It's been rumored that that's what's going to happen.
Rumored, okay.
And maybe you have to do it with books 1, 2, and 3, or the first 3, or something like that. But that's the big rumors at the moment. Is that 8 hours per book for a couple of books, and then you start splitting the books up.
Yeah. So the only thing I've seen specifically declared was that the first season is going to be 8 hours of content. So then people speculate that means 8 one-hour episodes, but that doesn't have to be the case. That could be shorter episodes than 1 hour. 1 hour is quite long.
Well, they can also have longer episodes too.
Yeah.
Than that.
Yeah.
That would be, I feel like that would be silly though.
That would be, I think that's
what to do the whole descent down to Sorcerer's Stone is as long as the first movie.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that to me, realistically, what's going to happen is they're going to be the plan. But by the time we get to season 3, we're already going to be on book 4. And by the time we get to season 5, that's the end of the whole thing. They are going to start rushing this so hard that it's going to be worse than the movies.
That would be if you start making seasons, the books not end with the end of a season, I think that's foolish. The idea of going from book 4 to book 5 mid-season seems ludicrous to me.
I agree. I'm just saying that I could see how that would happen. Like, I don't think that's crazy to think.
I think, one of the persons that's on this is the person who oversaw his Dark Materials. By the way, his Dark Materials did go to 3 seasons. It ended the whole series in 2022.
Awesome. I need to watch that final season.
Did it cover all the books?
Yeah, I believe it did. From a very, very quick Google search, it said it covered all the books. So the person who's on his Dark Materials is one of the, I think, executive producers for this, and I have faith that they'll do it. They'll do better than what you're suggesting.
Again, I hope so. I'm just trying to be slightly realistic. So
no, totally.
We'll see what happens.
It's good for the pod.
Yeah.
Yes. From the point of view of where it's physically getting filmed, it's going to be filmed in Leavesden Studios where original movies were filmed. So I'm hoping that means that they're using some of the sets.
I did not know that. That's actually really interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping Stuart Craig is still involved because he did a fantastic job. And hopefully he is overseeing the visual look of Hogwarts. This is what I'm hoping. And according to Variety article that I found, one of the producers, I think, he's a director of the first couple of episodes at least. What's his name? Mark Mylod, sorry. So he says that he doesn't want to mess with the Great Hall, but he's looking forward to expanding upon the architecture of Hogwarts and showing how it may have changed over time.
Yeah. Speaking of Hogwarts Legacy earlier, I think they did a great job of doing exactly that. They expand upon the architecture that were shown in Hogwarts. And that's my hope for this show as well, because they do some really amazing things with, like, just the stained glass windows themselves in Hogwarts is
so
absolutely in Hogwarts Legacy is so amazing that I hope that they're able to do the same thing here. Yeah.
And it's still very recognizable as Hogwarts that we got to know and love. And I think they have to be sensitive about that, because there haven't been, they say time has passed, but not enough time has passed that people forgotten the original adaptation. And I think the look of Hogwarts is so iconic that they have to kind of sensitively handle that transition, that there is there is a similarity, but they can also add, like you say, like in Hogwarts Legacy, you know where you are, but also there's all this extra stuff that still fits into that picture.
Yeah, I'm hoping if it means, like, if there's because I felt that the landscape changing between the movies 2 and 3 was so, like, jarring to me. That I'm hoping.
Thank you, Alfonso.
I'm hoping it's like a gentle, if they want to change the, something over time or something like that and just expand upon it, I hope it's done in a more, like, gradual, gentle way, because suddenly them, like, falling down a giant hill, that would be absolutely terrifying. Like, that's, like, straight out of my nightmares of, like, having to climb a hill like that. So, like,
as
I really
you
hope
wish.
That's your exercise.
Exactly. Like, it's just going from, like, walking across the grounds to walking down the grounds was, like, really wild to me.
One of the things I've always noticed about HBO that I personally like about their shows is that generally I find in the first episode of any HBO show, what they like to do is show you how extreme the show is going to get. So like some of the most violent the show is going to get, they show you that in the first episode. The scope of the show, they show you in the first episode. So I would not be surprised if in the first episode of the first season of this show, we have very wide sweeping shots of all of Hogwarts. So you, because they have, unlike the movies, we have the entire story now before this is being made. So they know where they can plan out where they want to go. So they can create this. One of the things I did want to bring up to you guys that I forgot to put in the doc was, what do we think the badass HBO intro to this show is going to be?
Ooh. Could be Lillian James's death.
No, I don't mean that. I mean the intro with the song. Like every HBO show has a song with a really stylized intro, right?
Yeah.
Every one of them, and I think it's going to be flying through Hogwarts. I think it's going to be.
I love that.
I don't know if it'll be realistic. Maybe some sort of like a claymation
map
type thing or something.
Could be the Marauders map. Teasing it.
Well, but I agree, Patrick. I think flying through Hogwarts, because like they did with Game of Thrones, and I don't know, I haven't really paid attention to other TV show intros, but like with Game of Thrones, it changed over time.
To introduce the different families that we were talking about,
But then it would be like, oh, well, now there's blood over here, so something went down in that area. Or now there's this over here, or now we explored a new location, so that popped up, like things like that. And so I think that very well could be is going through Hogwarts, and then like after the second season, now you can see like a little hint of the Chamber of Secrets, or now that this has happened, now, Quidditch is introduced after a few episodes. Now we see the Quidditch pitch. Oh, now this, like, I think that's probably really on point. Yeah.
I mean, it could also be a Marauders map type thing. But the reason I bring that up now is because I think they'll establish very early on the entire landscape, and then that's what it will stay the entire time. That's my hope, at least.
I hope so.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah. There is no reason for them not to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that they learn from the original adaptations, because I think it was genuinely a mistake to have the grounds the way they were in movies 1 and 2. When it gets to 3 and we're actually out in the Scottish Hills, I think that makes a lot more sense. So if they can get it right first and not have to change it later, then we don't have this jarring effect that happened to Sierra.
Right. Well, and they didn't expect the movie. When the first 2 movies were made, that Harry Potter was popular, but it wasn't what it was yet.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And I think a lot of it was also on location, so they went to various castles.
Well, and I think that makes sense. I think they keep the interior of the castle very similar throughout all of the movies. So I think when they're filming at Almswick and they're doing, all these other different castles, that's fine. It's the outside, like the walking to Hagrid's, which they kept in the north of England, where Almswick is, because that's just right there where that the Sandcastle Stone Castle is. And then in the third one is when they change to, we're going down this huge Scottish Highland hill into Hagrid's hut. And that's the type of stuff that I want them to avoid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So from the point of view of then casting, we have some confirmed casting, but we don't have Golden Trio yet, which was obviously going to be most important to get that right. So actors for the Golden Trio aren't confirmed yet. Apparently 32,000 kids have auditioned. So that kind of implies that they're getting 3 unknown kids of the approximately correct age. And the director then says, I think that's also from Variety, Mark admitted that they watched every single audition, and there is a couple of crackers.
Confirmed. There will be some white actors. Everybody can rest easy.
Crackers. Just
to let you know.
Crackers if you're not listening in the United States, cracker is a term used for white people.
Yeah. I thought it was a funny joke, but that's fine.
That's the joke that Patrick is making. Is there's going to be a couple of crackers, aka there's a couple of white kids.
Oh dear.
Which who knows?
That's not what crackers mean in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of good ones, right? Like a biscuit?
No, well, it's like a thing you'd have with cheese, but in this case, it means something good.
Good,
yeah, it's a cracking good time.
Like they're good. They're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good. Oh, sorry, and it was from HarryPotter.com, not from Variety. Apologies. So we don't have Harry and Ron and Hermione. Who we do have is apparently now Dumbledore, McGonagall, and Snape. So Dumbledore is John Lithgow,
the American,
who I had to look. Yes, which is apparently okay because he was Churchill.
Right. Yeah, that is very funny.
Yeah, but he was also apparently voice of Lord Farquaad in Shrek, and he was also in
Some of you may die. That is a sacrifice
that I'm willing to make.
But his greatest role, though, was as the killer in season 4 of Dexter. Spoilers for that if no one's seen that. But
I've never seen that.
he's fantastic in that. And I think this is actually a brilliant casting. Because John Lithgow is a fantastic actor, and he brings a gravitas to him that I think probably when they announced this made people go, ah. I mean, I'm sure there are people who were mad at this. I don't pay attention to casting stuff because I don't care. But I'm sure when they announced this, people were mad, and there were a lot of raised eyebrows for whatever reason. I don't know. Probably because he's from the U.S., I think, right? He's not British.
I think the main...
No, he's not.
I think the main concern is just
age.
Having to recast him at some point, should he not live to see the end.
Yeah. I don't know. I think for me personally, when I saw this, I was like, okay, I like that. I think that's... There's a lot of people they could have chosen, and I think he's a great choice for this.
Oh, I mean, I think he's a great option for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we definitely shouldn't write him off on the basis of age because Patrick Stewart is well into his 80s and he's still going strong.
Oh yeah, I think it's
so might John Lithgow. So
yeah,
nobody has cast Patrick Stewart for something that's supposed to go from 2027 to 2037. Yeah. When he's going to be 81 when it takes off, and he'll be 91 when it ends. Although he said he'll be 87 when it ends.
I think he's 80. He said 87.
Yes, but it doesn't start till 2027. He's 79 right now. So,
but remember, he'll be done theoretically after the 6th book is over.
No, he won't because there's a huge scene.
He doesn't have
there's
to
a
be
huge scene with Dumbledore in the fake King's Cross station with Harry when he's in between.
They can film that during season 1.
It's not going to take long time.
They have to film that. They have to film that with a 17-year-old Harry. So maybe they could. Maybe they could do it. Oh my gosh.
CG.
Yeah. Anyways.
AI.
So no, please, no CG.
No AI, please.
There's going to be de-aging processing going on all over this if you don't think that's going to happen.
No, I know that's true, but okay.
With all the flashbacks that I'm sure they're going to include, which we'll get to that later.
Yeah, so as long as he is alive and he still wants to do it, I think he's going to be
phenomenal.
Fine because
Yeah,
body doubles exist for more physical stuff if he's getting a bit older.
Absolutely.
Towards the end,
yeah.
he'll be fine.
I just watched him in Conclave where he's robed up the entire time because he plays a Catholic bishop. And I was like, there's one shot where I was like, oh yeah, I definitely see Dumbledore. He's going to be amazing. So I look forward to his performance a lot.
Now, do you think he'll act with a British accent?
Yes, because he did a phenomenal job with it in Church
said
Shots.
so.
Yeah.
Okay, so they are going to, even if they, okay,
Yeah.
that's awesome to know.
No, he has said so. He said, like, Dumbledore has to be British. So
Okay.
he said
Cool.
he'll be working with, like, a dialect coach and everything to make sure that he
So I assume,
properly represents him.
I assume that'll follow through with all of the actors then. Basically, that's what they're saying with that. I would just presume.
Yes.
Unless they have American
so-
students.
No,
So,
I would be
whatever.
shocked if they did not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have a quote from John Lithgow where he says, "I've just played Roald Dahl. I've played Winston Churchill. I'll spend some time with a dialect coach. Don't worry about that. But no, I mean, Dumbledore couldn't possibly be anything other than English. I just have to do my best."
Yeah.
Which is fair enough.
Interesting.
So he's aware. That's what he's
So
trying to do.
then that tells me that all the children actors have to be British actors. Then,
Yeah, I
right?
think that's
because they're not
has to
going
be the
to they're
case.
not going to have every actor take. I mean, they. Okay,
It would
just
be
everybody-
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, think
An
about
adult-
that.
Yeah. No, I think all the kids are going to have to be. I think it leaves it open for adults who can properly train to do
Sure.
the proper
Yeah.
accent.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
it leaves it open for that possibility. But yeah, I mean, expecting a small child to do a new accent right off the bat, especially if they're undiscovered talent, that's a lot. The task.
For sure.
And I know that when they did the open casting call, it was specifically for kids on the British Isles.
Although
so,
Awesome.
there's been some breaking news. Dick Van Dyke has been cast to be Binns, and they've asked him not to do a British accent.
That's not true, right?
No, of course not.
Dude, I would
have
love
not
that.
heard that.
Make Dick Van Dyke anything in this. He should absolutely be in this. 100%. You've sold me, Sam. I love it.
Listeners, if you're like, why the heck did Sam just say that? Dick Van Dyke is known as being the worst British accent ever done in a movie ever, which his Mary Poppins accent was not good.
It was so funny, though.
Now I want him in this more than anything, Sam. Let's do it.
All right, great.
Start a petition.
What else do we know, Ev?
Are we happy to move on to the next casting?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So McGonagall is going to be Janet McAteer, who is not American. So she was apparently in Chaos, the Netflix show, Walking Dead, The Menu. I haven't personally seen her in anything. Well, I have seen her photos. And as I said previously, I really can't imagine her as McGonagall now. But that is not to say that she can't do it.
I've only seen her in the Menu, and she's
so we'll see.
amazing.
Is she? Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. That's great.
She was
like, I don't
phenomenal.
have anything against her. I
Right.
just don't have anything for her either. Yeah, and the most controversial of the confirmed castings so far, whether rightly or wrongly, it's up to you, is Papa Isiyeru. Correct me if this is wrong, because I've only read about him.
I think it's
haven't
Papa
heard that said.
Isaidu, but I could also be wrong.
Isiyeru?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No worries. Okay, so he is going to be our Snape. So he is the correct age for Snape
Yes.
in the books, but there are notable differences. Namely,
Notable
he is
differences.
not ugly and he is black. So
Super hot, and he's not white.
so there
Yeah,
have been-
totally.
yeah, I don't know if he's super hot, but I'm not the right person to ask.
I'm being dramatic.
So, I mean, he's certainly not unattractive. Yeah, so some people in the fandom are not happy about this.
Yeah, it's the major controversy right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I couldn't find that quote again, but I have read a quote by the director that basically said that he doesn't have any worries about Papa being Snape because he was the best at the audition and he can deliver this kind of a change in tone that comes with like the emotions of Snape, which I liked the sound of. I'm heavily paraphrasing, he said better. I like the sound of this because what I want, as much as Alan Rickman's Snape was great. It was an interpretation of Book Snape. He is not Book Snape in any shape or form. I want to see unhinged Snape. You know, the Snape that yells. It has something to do with Potter at the end of book 3.
Yeah.
I want to see more of that Snape. And if the director thinks that this actor can deliver this, then maybe this is good. If out of all the people they've seen, he's the one who came across as the correct sort of person for this, you know, I am open to seeing what that's going to look like. I know that they can make him greasy looking and more ugly, I'm sure.
Sure.
Makeup,
with makeup
hair and
and
makeup is
everything
great
else.
things. Yeah.
But also, like, I don't think the fact that Snape is sort of ugly or has his big nose and a greasy hair, it really, in a book, in context of the book, that means something because it helps the readers visualize, and it, you know, JKR likes to give the bad people like sort of bad characteristics or whatever. But in context of a show, I don't think it's super important that he be ugly.
Sarah's going to fight you.
Okay.
I
No, that's fine.
have opinions.
Also-
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah. Also, people who are bullies and people who are miserable and who are mean, even if they look average or possibly even nice, when they are of that disposition, they come across as worse looking.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
I'll give you that for sure. However, see our What If Snape episode for more. But
Yeah, for
to
real.
paraphrase our whole section, we had like a whole debate about pretty privilege and how if Snape, one of the what ifs was what if Snape was good looking? And basically it changes a lot. Because even if he is mean or if other people are going to bully him, that tends to be less so the more attractive you are. It's just kind of how the world works.
See, Lucius Malfoy.
Unfortunately, yeah. He would have a different upbringing. Like the upbringing would only go so far. He and like Petunia might get along more, which would change the dynamic with Lily. And then that like would carry through to all his friends at Hogwarts and into the rest of everything else. And also if you're not given anybody a reason, if you're like pretty attractive looking, people are naturally going to trust you more. And which, you know, is unfair, but is like
Is a
you
reality.
tend to trust. It's a reality. You tend to trust more attractive people more until they give you a reason not to. And so like the trio's immediate suspicions of him would be like completely out of nowhere. So I think it's that in and of itself, I do think that it is key that Snape is maybe not ugly, but he cannot be attractive. Like he has to be either in that like middle range to like unattractive side just for his character to make sense.
I think
Now,
specifically with Petunia, that's a huge deal with the way in which
I
Petunia
think so,
interacts
exactly.
with him as a child. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they choose to go into all that,
Which they should if they're
Which
doing a more faithful
they should.
adaptation.
Yes,
sure, but I
exactly.
mean, it's definitely not necessary for the overall story. You know,
I mean, yeah.
I mean, some of it. I understand what you're saying, and I do agree with you to an extent. So,
However, hair and makeup's amazing. If they can make Colin Farrell into Penguin, anything's
Yeah, for
possible.
real.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
God.
So that is not necessarily concerning to me as long as they do it. Like, you know, he can be as attractive as whoever, as long as they're going to amend that along the way. I know there's a lot of controversy about he's not, you know, white. And yeah, people are pulling out the book quote that, you know, he turned the color of spoiled milk and all that stuff. And I get it. At the same time, my reasoning why I think that this is a challenge that they've put on themselves, the people who are doing the casting, is because it starts to seem icky if the Marauders and the Golden Trio are all white and all blaming or bullying a black guy. I think that starts to come across as a completely different thing than what it is
in the books.
It becomes a racial thing instead of the more nuanced characters and who they are and what they believe and what they value and all of those things, which I think is infinitely more interesting. And so I am assuming that this means that at least one Marauder and at least one of the Golden Trio will be a person of color, if not also black. They can, there's a whole variety, but I think that is the only way to offset making this a race thing, which I would hope that they're not going to do, because I think that undermines the story a little bit.
Well, something else I was just thinking of too is in the books, the idea that Voldemort thinks himself above everybody with the blood thing, and the idea that mudblood is such a bad word that shouldn't be said, and all those things, like a lot of people see that as a analogy or a criticism kind of of race
for Nazism. Yeah.
Whereas in this version of Harry Potter, that can no longer be an interpretation of it, because Voldemort's most trusted advisor is a black person, I mean, of course it can still be that, but and maybe that's even a good thing. I don't know. It would just make it just about blood. Yeah. I
think if Voldemort is an analogy for Adolf Hitler and the Death Eaters are an analogy for the Stormtroopers and Nazis, some of Adolf Hitler's, Adolf Hitler himself wasn't not Adriatic. Aryan. What's the term? Aryan.
Yeah.
Adolf Hitler himself wasn't Aryan. Some of his most trusted advisors aren't Aryan. I think you could easily still make the Hitler comparison to Voldemort, even if they don't go with a white actor for him. And I think you can do the same thing if Snape's not white as well, because it still lines up historically with the analogy. That being said, I've really warmed to this announcement. Was not familiar with Papa Asaidu's work at all, so I've gone and looked at a lot of different clips of him acting. He's a phenomenal actor. I'm very glad to hear that, they went out and said he did the best in auditions. So everybody who's making arguments about, we hear a lot about meritocracy right now in the United States. And if people are like, the best person got the job, then all right, the best person got the job. At the same time, there are still optics that need to be taken care of. For example, in the book, it does not seem to be a race issue between Harry, Hermione, Ron, and Snape. However, it does seem to be a nastiness and ugly issue. Harry I think, is more readily accepting that Snape is not a great person because of the way that he looks. The way that his third-person limited description of Snape is still a bit reflective of the way that Harry perceives Snape. So if they do a faithful adaptation of Snape's character, I don't think there's any issue here, because we will see that Snape is nasty, that he's bad, that he treats children horribly, that he was really mean to James. At the same time, I don't think the 1970s bullying issue is actually that. It certainly changed a little bit of the way that we perceive James's character. But if they make James white, which is not, is something that they might change. But it's certainly plausible that James, the son of a wealthy businessman, he's the only son of a white, wealthy business guru. It's entirely plausible that James would bully a black boy in the 70s. Some might even say that it's likely. And that will certainly crush sort of readers who love James, but I think is a fine interpretation that doesn't change so much, because we do have that conversation of Sirius and Remus saying, no, he grows, he changes, and here's the man that he became later on. So I don't necessarily think that that's such a bad look, although I do think it needs a lot of care and attention to it. You can't go into that conversation and just wipe over and be like, oh yeah, James, this white kid bullied this black boy in the 70s, and that's
he used to be racist, but now he's fine.
Yes, I think you actually need to have now you've changed a little bit of the adaptation, because you have to have that conversation more in order to responsibly take care of this narrative and not set up James to be this idolized racist that Harry still loves. So we need to have a balance of narrative.
I think that's true. However, I think it's unfortunate that we even need to have that, because in our society now, unfortunately, people look for racism in every single corner of existence.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating that we can't just say, hey, the Harry Potter books aren't necessarily ever about race, ever. So it doesn't matter who anyone of any race is that plays any character. It really doesn't, and so like, it's unfortunate that we have to even think about this at all. And I guess in the perfect world, we'd all be like, oh, sure, this guy's a great actor. He deserves to be a good part in this show. But because society is the way it is right now, you're right, Sam, they do have to treat it with care. And so it's just tough because unfortunately, so much stuff like this has not been treated with a lot of care recently, or it's gone the exact opposite way, where it's taken like some things are taken so seriously and so being pushed in a certain direction, I guess, that it overcompensates too much to the point of changing completely the meaning of all this stuff, which is exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. And so it's unfortunate that it even has to be a conversation. Yeah.
So I think this really becomes a writing issue now.
Yeah.
You cast Papa Aside as Snape. I think that's an amazing pick. Now the writing has to be now the writing has to be great.
Yeah.
I think that's the key. Is it's like I agree, Patrick. I think I would be upset. I guess I'm agreeing with both of you. I would be upset if the writing lets us down and makes this a racial thing.
Yes, exactly.
Because it shouldn't, and it shouldn't matter what race all these characters are, because that's not what it's about. Like, it's about all these other issues and all these other things and how people are treated and how they were treated to be able to create them this way, et cetera, et cetera. I also this is my like half-hearted, not really joke, but I'm going to throw it out here. But if I hear one person complain by the time we get to book 6 that he's called the Half-Blood Prince, I'm going to scream. That's what he is. He knew this going in, guys. It is not a racial thing. He is dubbing himself. It is not the show being racist in some way, calling him the Half-Blood Prince. It's based on magical blood, guys. I'm going to put that on the table, and now I'm going to throw it off the table, and it's gone.
Listen, a lot of internet discourse is garbage, and we shouldn't pay attention to it anyways. I'm sure that will happen, but it has no merit.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't worry about it, guys.
Yeah.
All right, on to this next wonderful announcement, Ev.
Yes.
Yeah, so one good piece of news is that we're getting Peeves, hopefully, in this adaptation. So they have mentioned him, that he will be there.
Amazing.
Yes. I cannot wait.
Excited.
Let chaos reign.
Unimportant to the overall story. Not
so
necessary.
Important.
Not necessary.
Very necessary.
But it's a nice scenery setting that, now that we have CGI, wouldn't be that complicated, and it's a nice little thing for the fans.
It's true. Much easier to do now.
It doesn't have to be a big thing.
Yeah.
It's just like a nice scenery setting thing.
I need an entire episode from the perspective of Peeves.
No, Sierra, I will.
Peeves backstory flashback.
No backstory flashback. Literally just like a filler episode of him causing chaos.
No.
And torturing Filch and being annoying.
But we have that.
I love it.
We have that throughout the books. We don't need a special episode.
We do need a special episode.
Sierra, I take that back. I actually would love the episode where Fred and George set off all the fireworks and make life a living hell for Umbridge over that like week or 2 weeks or however long that is. I would love that episode to be from Peeves' perspective. That I would dig.
Yes. I want the episode to end with "Give her hell from us, Peeves," and then the entire rest of then the next episode is the like it unscrews the other way and all the other stuff. That's what I want.
Incredible. Great. Good.
Yeah, no, that sounds okay. Yeah,
so did you guys, when you guys were doing the casting, Sam, did you guys come up with any actors that could play Peeves?
Oh,
we did.
Oh, did we?
Did we?
Patrick, did we?
Actually, did we? No, we did not have Dick Van Dyke, I don't think.
We did not have Dick Van Dyke on anything. So I had as my 3 picks, and I think we went with mine for this. Yes, we did. Just to tease part 2 of this YouTube thing, which I will edit eventually and it will get on the internet at some point. For my third pick, I had Richard Ayoade, whose last name I'm not pronouncing correctly. Then I had Rowan Atkinson, who's Mr. Bean, as my second pick.
And that's a great idea.
Yes, it is. And then I had James Acaster as my number one pick. Sierra had Andy Serkis.
I had Andy Serkis, Ricky Gervais, and Robert Sheehan.
Ricky Gervais as, oh my God, that's so funny. Oh, I was going to say, just without thinking about it, a comedian would be perfect for that role. It would be that's a good cameo role for someone.
Yes, absolutely.
That could be someone who is American it doesn't have to be, but that could be someone who doesn't have a British accent in a neat cameo role.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyways, that's, those are who we picked on that stuff. So go out and check out our YouTube page. The link's in our Instagram bio. So please and thank you. So Peeves. Yes, very exciting. I've been very fascinated by, just to move on, the fact that we have relaxed at least the British only rule. And this kind of leads in a little bit more into the YouTube as well. We did cast other non-Brits. I think we ended up with
you did.
I did. I cast, I decided it would be fun if Rita Skeeta would not be British, but a very, very annoying American journalist. So I won't spoil the pick. Y'all will have to go back and see it. It's like one of the last things that we do, but I had a great pick that I have yet to hear anybody say, oh no, I hate that. Actually, everybody that I've told that pick to has been like, I love that. So go and watch the video, y'all.
Do you think, I don't know if you guys talked about this, but I'm curious what each of you think about this. Will there be actors in this that were in the Harry Potter series playing different roles because there's just not that many British actors?
No.
I don't think so. Although I did accidentally cast Dawn French, who is the fat lady, as Sprout.
Yeah, you did.
So probably not. I knew there's been a lot of buzz about Tom Felton playing Lucius Malfoy, and I personally want David Tennant, who played Barty Crouch Jr., to go and play Barty Crouch Sr., but I doubt that will happen.
Oh, that could be fun.
I agree.
That could be fun.
I mean, there could be a lot of cases of something like that happening. You know?
I think there's an opportunity there that they could, the only person that I had repeating was Harry Melling. But that's more because I think he's completely unrecognizable, and he could play someone very interesting in the show. So
you also recast Flitwick as the same actor.
Well, yeah, but that's because Warwick Davis is amazing. But I mean, like in terms of changing somebody to a different character, I think that there's room for it, but I don't. It would have to be someone who had a smaller role, or like a one movie role that it could now be something completely different.
Bigger stuff.
I mean, why would it though? Really, why couldn't it be?
Because I feel like
actors?
the whole point is to like move away from that. Like, because in an interview, or a couple interviews, I think, but Daniel Radcliffe, they're like, hey, do you think that they'll ask you to come back for something? And he's like, I think they really want to be new. They want to do new things with new people. And he's kind of like...
That's just Daniel Radcliffe trying to distance himself from it.
Been the same thing with a bunch of the other actors that they've also asked the
Rupert
same
Grint
thing
has
to.
said the same thing. Emma Watson has
Rupert Grint said
thing.
that. Yeah, and also...
So no Emma Watson as Trelawney?
No, although, there has been lots of people clamoring for Daniel Radcliffe to play James, for Rupert Grint to play Arthur, and for Emma Watson to play Hermione's mom for 6 seconds. But there's just no way that's going to happen. If they couldn't get the Cursed Child movie together, it's not going to happen for them to be in this show.
I mean, they could throw people in for cameo roles. That would be... to me, that would be cool.
So what I would love... is if they did Daniel Craig-esque cameos.
Yes.
Daniel Craig is that stormtrooper who gets...
in Force Awakens.
who gets
Jedi mind tricked.
Jedi mind tricked.
By Rey,
That is the type of cameo that I want, where you look back and you're like, wait a second. Or like, Peter Jackson cameos where you're like, he's that guy with the carrot. That's the kind of cameo that I want.
I have an idea.
Tell me.
So Emma Watson could be the witch in the what's it called, the
Hogshead.
Magical Menagerie or whatever it is, when they go and get the rat tonic for Scabbers.
There's Crookshanks away. That's
so
funny.
she could be she could be the witch who works in that shop.
I hope that each of the I hope that the trio shows up in the last season as just like little snippets of like people fighting among the crowd during the Battle of Hogwarts.
Oh, that would be cool.
Which I mean, HBO has shown with The Last of Us, they did that kind of having. Well, they cast them in bigger roles, but they cast the voices of Joel and Ellie from the video game as actual actors in the TV show.
Really
but just like for one episode each. I could see something like that happening.
I also think that the closest thing we'll get to like somebody who was heavily involved in Potter at some point would be, I hope that we get Stephen Fry as an actual actor in the show at some point. Both Sierra and I cast him as Slughorn.
It could be Slughorn.
Yeah, that's literally who we cast him as. And then
brilliant.
I wanted Jim Dale, the voice of the American versions of the books, to be Dobby, because he'd be a voice actor.
Interesting.
Or he can be Peeves.
He could be Peeves.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He has this ridiculous voice.
Listen, bud, our casting is phenomenal. And then it's not at points we like definitely mess up some stuff, but it's fine. Like I picked,
if you say so yourself,
I picked Diana Rigg to be Mrs. Longbottom, and she's dead. So
little tough.
Fail.
AI. Bring her back with AI.
So really,
it
needs to
done.
be Helen Mirren.
Tarkenton.
Yeah, Tarkin. They did bring Tarkin back. That's true. Tarkin was back.
Anyway,
given the alive people that could be brought back to the TV series, you still have to be careful. Well, they still have to be careful because they have declared that they want to use actors closer in age to what the book characters were.
I think this is super key. Yeah.
I would love that because it did always bother me how old Harry's parents are, and I think that's an important bit of the story of how young they were during the war. And I think it just really brings, I think it's, in a way, it's extra sad because towards the end when he sees them with the Resurrection Stone, they're almost the same age.
Yeah.
And how disconcerting is that?
I mean, Daniel Radcliffe is literally 21 in the movie when they shoot that scene. So he should be exactly the same age as James.
Yeah.
That's the one.
So what I'm hearing you say is JoJo Siwa is Lily Evans. Confirmed.
No. We do have some great castings for Lily, but I won't spoil everything.
Who will Lady Gaga be? Lady Gaga is Professor Trelawney.
No, I hope. Oh my God, I actually would love that pick.
Okay, but
that would be good, right?
But I think Lady Gaga would be Celestina Wallbeck, where it's a cameo performance.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
That's
a great idea.
Listen, I'm a brilliant human being.
And so humble.
I know. The humblest. You have no idea exactly how humble I am.
Cue I'm So Humble by Adam Levine and Jake Peralta from
Future Patrick. Can you get oh my God, now I can't remember his name.
No.
Andy Samberg. I almost said Andy Serkis.
Yeah, there you go.
It's actually Andy Serkis playing Andy Samberg in CGI. Future Patrick, can you get the rights to that? Can you get the rights to that song and put it in?
Yeah, no. Present Patrick says no.
Present Patrick says no. But future Patrick might say yes.
You keep wishing.
I have heard some people say that having the actors who play Harry's parents to be in their 20s is too unrealistic for modern day because nobody has kids that young. But I don't care for that take.
So false.
That's a big urban point.
It depends where it's set too.
I cast those.
Half of my friends, half the people I graduated college with.
High school, even.
Sierra and I are the demographic of millennials. I do not have children yet. Sierra does. We graduated at the same time.
Yeah.
And I have a 15-year-old, so there
you go. But back to the like actors being closer in age to the book characters. I think this is super key, especially if we kind of are going back to the who this is aimed toward, who the show's aimed towards. If it's specifically aimed towards book fans who were around Harry's age during that time, we are now Marauder age. So I think having the accuracy of seeing a Sirius and a Lupin who are our age and knowing that if we lost our friends 10 years ago, how horrible it would be and how young that is. And also I think that is another thing that when in the 7th one, when like maybe not the extended camping trip, but everybody else who's dealing with all these like wartime things and having to go into hiding and whatnot, you know, I feel like in the movies, it's maybe a little bit harder to be like, oh yeah, the Order of the Phoenix, like they totally know what we children are going through because they were totally adults at that time, but they kind of were not. Like they were the same age. Like this is repeating itself in a new generation who are also kids or like, you know, late teens during this horrible situation. And I think that brings a different level of empathy that is really key. And I think that it gets forgotten a lot. And I want it to come back. So, you know, I feel like it's also really rare in media, like to be like, oh yeah, this person who's 25 has a 4-year-old or whatever. Or even a little bit older than that, like a 30-year-old having multiple kids and actually looking 30. Because I feel like parents are always like in their 50s and grandparents are always, you know, graying and with canes and all sorts of stuff. And I'm like my parents are grandparents and they're not. And so I feel like that's why I feel like I'm always too young to like have kids. But I'm not. Yeah. So I think that because it's just not represented accurately, like we always age everybody up. And I think that's silly.
Cook, Sierra, cook.
As I sit here with my hair being pulled like crazy right now.
If you watch a documentary about, say, I don't know, Second World War, you would see a lot of people volunteering and being drafted, and they're 16, 17 years of age, and people are always shocked by this. And I think if you were, for example, making a movie or a TV series about people like that would be a huge disservice to cast 30-year-old people in those roles, because that is part of the thing that makes it extra tragic, that they were so young.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, now you're barely fit to be left alone in the house at 16 years old. You know, you get in trouble in some places.
But you're forgetting about the practicality of hiring actors under the age of 18. So any human being that is over the age of 18 that they can hire to play someone, they should do that, because they had literally had to change when they were filming the movies. They literally had to change the laws in England so that they could film the movies. So that you have to be practical about it as well. But I think you're right in terms of Harry's parents and people who are in their 20s. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, they're still
should be in their
20s. So,
well, that's like 1917. Like I mean, it's Dean Charles Chapman. He was 21 when they filmed that. Like. Or when that released, I think he was 20 when they filmed it. And so that is, you know, accurate to the type of people who were in that that situation.
And it helps to see how young they are. Yeah.
Exactly. I think that is really important. So,
but also I do think I would love sorry, just being practical about it though, people change so much from the age of 15 to 25.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to cast someone under the age of 25, you really don't know what that person is going to be 3, 4, 5 years down the line. And when you're talking about a project that they're saying is going to last 10 years, you can't, you know, sometimes you end up with a Neville who's 7 foot tall. You know, you don't necessarily anticipate that. So again, it's all about, you have to balance the practicality with what you think would be accurate and what you actually want to, just to throw that out there.
That's true.
So taking the Neville example, this is also contrasted with Colin Creevey, because Colin Creevey, you know, was small and tiny, when they were filming Chamber. But by the time they were going to use him again, he had like skyrocketed. He didn't look small. Yeah. He looked a lot older. He didn't look in it like, you know, that little baby face, young, innocent look. Like I saw a picture of what he looked like at that time and I was like, oh my goodness. So like, for someone like him, that's why Nigel appeared so that they didn't have to like recast. I don't know why they didn't just say this is Colin now, but whatever. And so,
or even his brother,
or Dennis. Yeah, I mean, they basically wanted to like combine Colin and Dennis together. But the actor who played Nigel, the reason why we know that he's supposed to be a stand-in for Colin and Dennis is because he was supposed to die during the Battle of Hogwarts, and they were going to have a scene of him. They filmed it of him dead, and they cut it out because he didn't look small enough. Like he didn't look how it's described in the book about how Colin was tiny even in death,
snuck back in and tiny even in death,
whatnot. And so they cut it. But that was the whole, like, he was supposed to be that kind of like the small person who gets wrapped up in this and is too young for what's going on, that type of thing. But even the person they replaced him with
couldn't fill that role.
Couldn't fill that role properly enough. However, someone like Neville, recasting him when, you know, all of a sudden he becomes this like jacked sex god or whatever, like like they just are like, I guess you're wearing weird clothes and fake teeth now.
The actor was an adult. Yes. Just so that Sierra's not getting in trouble. The actor was an adult when that happened.
Very much an adult. Very much an adult. Also, I was very much younger at the time too.
Right. Yep.
So like context
matters.
So like, you know, he turns into this completely unrecognizable person when you compare him to how Neville is in the books, you know, book one.
Right.
And so I think that that's just like, yes, we see that, but also there are ways around it. Like, and I think, you know, going in that that's going to potentially happen. Daniel Radcliffe didn't grow as much as they thought he would.
Yeah, for real.
Like, you can't predict these things. So it's, I think that there are ways around it where they could still make it work regardless.
I mean, they'd have to roll with it. You know, they're getting a lot of money. They'll be fine.
This conversation is we're also splitting between two different things. I think the audience in general is much more forgiving about who the children actors turn into. If you guys remember, right after book 5 movie came out, there was major conversations about recasting Harry, Ron, and Hermione. And I think that was mainly just a studio thing, because they were making a lot of money and they wanted, their contracts were up, etc. But there was major rumors and news about like, is Warner Brothers going to recast because these kids are now too old to do this? And they didn't. And I don't think they were ever actually going to. And I think that's down to the audience was against that. They're much more forgiving. It didn't really matter as much that Daniel Radcliffe is 5'5" and not around 6 foot like Harry's supposed to be. Rupert Grint ended up kind of looking like Ron anyways, but a lot of people were upset with how pretty Hermione was with Emma Watson instead of not being pretty. But in general, those conversations are a lot less. I think what, Sierra, you're really speaking to is like, get the adult actors age right now.
Yeah.
So get people who look pretty young. Maybe they are 25 and they got to maintain their sort of James and Lily like appearance, but they kind of look 21. You know, as long I think that's the impact that you're looking for.
Exactly.
There.
Yeah. I want the adults to like, I want to look at the Marauder aged people now and say that's is me. Like me, and like that's me. Like I want to look at Sirius and be like,
that's me.
Yeah, I can see him living down my street, like taking his kids to the same daycare type of a situation. Like I want that experience of not being like, oh, and then these people are also like, because then I feel like our generation will get lost because it's one and then the other. So like if you cast all the adults too old, then we're not in it anymore.
Yeah.
But it's not about you.
But it is though.
It is.
If they're making the show for the people who were Harry at Harry, now we are now we are Sirius and Lupin and that generation. And so we're looking at these kids as potentially our kids.
Yeah.
Right. But again, you have to think the reason they cast Alan Rickman as Snape was not for some nefarious reason because people of that age couldn't relate to it. They cast the people they cast in the first movies because they wanted people to take the movies seriously.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is not even a concern now because everybody already knows and understands what Harry Potter is.
Yeah.
So I think it's much easier for them to do now what you want them to do, and I agree with you 100%. And so I don't think they'll have any problem doing that.
Yeah, I don't think they have an excuse not to.
Right, exactly.
My other hope with all of this age-wise is, and this isn't going to happen because this isn't the way TV writing goes, but my hope is that we cast young Voldemort, we cast Slughorn now, so we can film those flashbacks instead of having to recast young Voldemort between books 2 and 6. I hope that they film the flashbacks of Dumbledore and Snape and McGonagall and all those characters early on in the seasons and don't use them for a while, but that we get the younger versions that are literally younger instead of having to de-age, and so that they can play around with those we go. It's not going to happen. It's 100% never going to be taken seriously as an idea, but that is my dream.
Are they that organized though?
No, that's my whole point. Even if they were organized, it's incredibly expensive to film scenes that you're not going to use for a show that could get canceled between books 2 and book 6. Like it's just not going to happen. So, but I would like it. I would like it to.
Sorry, let's move on from casting. I feel like we talked about it too much. Let's move on, because there's a lot of good other stuff to talk about.
Or not enough. Okay, so other than the actors, there are other people involved. Arguably, even more importantly, because they actually call the shots and make all those decisions that we're speculating about. So J.K. Rowling and David Heyman are both involved as executive producers. So they're back.
Meaningless role. Has nothing to do with anything.
So
unless they have
serious.
I mean,
an executive producer is someone who just wants their name attached to it. Unless they want to be. You're right, Sam. That's a good point.
So they might have so I know one of the things that Rowling spoke about for both this show and for Fantastic Beasts is she wanted a bigger hand in casting. So she got an executive producing role, in the contract so that she could be the one to help casting at the end. I'm sure that's going on here. And I believe that both Heyman, who had script oversight of all the movies, and Rowling are both going to have script oversight. So I actually, in this particular case, disagree that those two executive producers are meaningless. In general, Patrick, you are 100% correct. Martin Scorsese sometimes is an EP on something that he's never looked at, but it's to help out a project for a friend or for somebody that he trusts or that sort of things. So EPs often are just like sort of names to get people like, oh, hey, like blah, blah, blah was involved. And it's like, well, were they really? Or are they just there to promote it? In this case, I believe both will have active roles in the show.
Yeah. Okay. I hope so.
Yes. I'd say they would at least have like a veto.
Yeah. I think that's really the power that they're looking for. The script oversights. Yeah.
And some very questionable writing that might happen if once the writers get too overexcited about things. Okay, so yes, the two of them are there. The director, we don't know if he's a director for the whole thing or just for the first couple of episodes. Mark Mylod, so from Game of Thrones and Succession. So how do people feel about that?
I think the director is probably the most important part, other than the showrunner, maybe, because the showrunner is in. Sam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the showrunner is like the who's the guy that did it for Marvel, right? The guy that oversees everything. Oh, the one that makes sure
Feige, right? What's his last name?
Yes, Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige.
Yeah, Kevin Feige.
Like that person for this project is going to be very important because everything we've been talking about, that person is the one that has to at least. Decisions have to go through that person. Yes. Continuity is going to be very important,
and they'll have their own,
especially if they want to go for the long haul.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of showrunners, the showrunner is Francesca Gardner.
Sorry, I didn't even see that there.
His Dark Materials.
Sorry, I didn't even see that there. But yes, the director is also important. Showrunner, very important. Sorry. Overall, very important, yes.
I really like Francesca Gardner. I think, obviously, Succession is a big hit. I've watched a couple episodes, but I haven't watched all of it yet. And his Dark Materials, I've seen the first 2 seasons of. I think that Gardner is going to be really, really good. And most big franchises now have, like, I know this is true at Lucasfilm because I know somebody who writes books and comics for them. They have continuity teams. And so it's like that meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where Charlie is all that red string everywhere. Like, that is literally like a room or an office where they are making sure that everything fits into it. And they do that from high level oversights. So like looking at the story arc overall down to they have people that come in as continuity coordinators. And I think it's Tom Hiddleston talks about this in a Graham Norton episode. I could be wrong about the actor, where the director said, all right, eat as much salad as you can during the scene. So he ate all the salad. And then the continuity coordinator came on and said, okay, we've got about 40 more takes left on this. Here's a new bowl of salad. You have to eat it all by the end of this in order for the continuity to make sense. So he ended up eating 40 helpings of salad and then vomiting it all up at the end of it. So that's like when people get upset with continuity issues, like, it is such a hard job to do. And I believe his Dark Materials, I think, did a really good job with continuity. I read the books and I liked the show. So I think they did a very passable, if not great job. For that, I believe The Gardener is going to be good. I do want to speak very quickly about a little controversy that happened with one of their writers that they hired. Andy Greenwald was first a film critic and TV show critic. He wrote a TV show that I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. Anyways, that TV show I think ran for 2 seasons or something like that. There was a lot of controversy when they hired him on. Now he wrote for HBO, and he used to be in the podcast world on the Ringer network as their, like, one of their main pop culture critics. And that the Ringer and Spotify are very connected with HBO. The founder of the Ringer does a bunch of HBO stuff. But Andy Greenwald got hired on, and they pulled this quote from when he was on one of those pop culture podcasts where he was like, I think that this TV show is totally unnecessary. The HBO Harry Potter show, he's like, I think it'd be interesting to have people go into Rowling's world, like you were talking about, Patrick, earlier. He wanted people to go into Rowling's world and be able to mess around with it and have fun with it and create something new within her world. But he said, Rowling's never going to let that happen. That's her baby. She doesn't want anybody else coming playing around. And then he says, but, I haven't even finished all the books. I started reading them to my, 7-year-old or something like that. We're not done. And then he got hired, and people shredded that decision. And I'm here to say, I particularly trust Andy Greenwald, and also, let's all be a lot more patient about stuff like that. Andy Greenwald got hired to be a writer on this television show. He read the first book, so he'll be fine adapting the first book, and also he can read all the books before he starts writing. Like, he's very possible of doing research, very capable of doing research. So let's all calm down a bit.
Also, don't you want voices of reason involved in the project?
Yes.
Too? Like, you don't want everyone there to just be like, oh, yes, this is exactly what it should be. You want people to be like,
but for TV, this is better because...
Bring people in who don't necessarily think it's a good idea and let them tell you why so that you can prove to them that it is necessary or whatever. I think that's a great decision to have people involved in the project like that.
I agree.
So another person involved in production that we do have the name for is Holly Waddington as a costume designer. So she did costumes for Warhorse and for Poor Things, which had some very
fabulous costumes,
wacky, whimsical stuff.
Did she win for Poor Things? I forget. I know it was nominated for costume design.
I'm not sure if she won anything. But costumes are going to be very important. That's going to be such a major part of the setting. So I hope she does a good job there. But I really, really can't tell. But I'm glad it's not Colleen Atwood, as much as I'm sure she's fabulous. I don't think she went too far with the coats for Fantastic Beasts.
That's very funny.
I would like to see the interpretation of her interpretation of wizard robes, but I'd like them to be robes and not just let's put them all in coats.
Yes, she did win. In fact, for Poor Things. So she is an Oscar winner, and I trust her very much with this. It will be interesting to see what the director says he wants for costumes.
Yes, because that's going to make a difference, because one of the
Chris Columbus.
Wanted Chris Columbus. I was like, is that his real name? Yes, it is. Chris Columbus wanted the kind of, Dickensian situation, and this has influenced the costumes for the first couple of films. So it'd be interesting to see what the current director is going to want and what's going to come out. But I just hope it's not going to be too modern.
Haircuts also will be really interesting to see.
I know. Are they going to be the 90s mushroom cut? I would love that.
Or is it going to just is the side of every single person's head going to be shaved, regardless of what gender they are or what species of animal they are? Is everything going to just be shaved? We'll have to just see. Tune in to find out.
They're going to shave their names into the side of their head, so you always know which character it is.
That is a 90s thing. That is a 90s thing, actually. I got I think a lightning bolt shaved into the back of my head once when I was younger.
90s,
I think so.
90s centaur fashion will be interesting to note if they all have. So just everyone. All right, that one's Ferenz. I can see his name shaved into the side of his head.
Yeah, he has a big F on his forehead.
Dear Lord.
So I think now is probably a good time to. I think we kind of already been doing this throughout the episode, to be honest, because we can't avoid it. So what would we like to see in the TV adaptation? So for me, I've touched on that with Snape. I would like to see character behavior being closer to their book behavior.
Yeah.
So I want Hermione to be way more flawed.
Yeah.
I want Snape to be way more unhinged. Harry needs to be more sassy, and
oh my gosh, yes,
less of an I don't know, because he does study, and he's he does a lot more things than Expelliarmus every so often. There's more to Harry, so justice for Harry, and also for Ron. He should get some of his lines back and not just be comic relief. So that would be what I would like, apart from other things that I've mentioned throughout. What about you guys?
Yeah, sassy Harry or nothing.
But also, along with sassy Harry, we also have to get moody Harry in there too.
Yes.
But so
yes.
I hope the actor. It's really tough, but I really hope the actors who play, and this obviously goes without saying, I hope the actors who play the trio are good actors. Nothing against, Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, or Emma Watson, because I do think that they were really good in a lot of ways. I don't know if necessarily Irvin would agree with that, but I do think that I want them to be able to. And I think they can find someone who's going to be a good actor, because I think just as important as sassy Harry is, I think book 5 Harry is also going to be very important, and we need to see Harry struggle. We need to see all the characters be able to struggle. Yeah. So good acting would be what I want to see across the board.
Yeah. I want to see. I think personally for me, I want to see the scene at the end of Order of the Phoenix where he's smashing things in Dumbledore's office, because that was personally for me as an individual person. This was my chapter where I went, like somebody gets me. Harry gets me. So this is kind of an important bit for me, and I hope it does come across, and it does happen. And it can't happen if Harry doesn't get basically enough lines and space to have those kind of moments. So not just the moments that move the plot forward, but also the sassy moments, the fun moments, but also these kind of intense and happy struggle moments, because there's a lot of struggle, and that's partly why we like the books as well. You kind of have to bring all of those things together and tie them together. Yeah. To make it all work. Yeah. So I hope that happens.
So along with kind of like the just general, I want to see actors who can do a good job and bring all the nuance in. I need badass Ginny. I need her. I don't know if it was the direction or the writing or the actress or a combination of all three. I would hope that it's not Bonnie Wright, but who knows? Ginny gets invited to the Slug Club because Slughorn sees her hex somebody in the on the train. Like, I need that Ginny in my life. I need the Ginny who is an amazing Quidditch star because she's had to play with her brothers for forever. I want Ginny who gets recognition on her own for her own abilities and who can convince the entire school population that Harry has a dragon tattoo on his chest.
Yeah.
That's the kind of Ginny that I need.
Yeah, and the Ginny who gets Harry out of his head.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know?
Exactly.
And a Ginny that feels like she could be in a relationship with Harry.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that even deserves so. The confidence level is so high. She's the one that, when they kiss finally and after the Quidditch championship, she's the one who initiates that, not Harry.
Yeah, she jumps at him. Yeah.
So,
and I need that scene. I'm just saying,
I hate what we got in Half-Blood Prince. I hate what we got in the movie.
The letdown. OMG. The whole point of having a romance in there is that the first time, and it's if you're not going to do it right, just don't do it. I think that the movies could have been exactly the same and had exactly the same impact if Harry and Ginny never got together.
So
it would change nothing.
Yeah. So
except for it would make me feel less awkward.
Ginny's whole character, I would say it's a writing thing and not a Bonnie Wright thing for sure. Because in movie 5, I think she's phenomenal in the way that they start building her character up. It's still a bit of a sacrifice. Yeah. We aren't getting as much of Ginny, but when you're adapting into a movie from a book, you have to lose some lines. But you still get the Reducto curse that blows up the entire Hall of Prophecy. You get the, her being really good in the DA lessons. And I think she's doing a great job. You even get her look of horror that they zoom in on when Hermione says Cho couldn't stop looking at you the whole time. We get all of that. And then in book 6, for whatever reason, they just adapt that storyline to and not just adapt it, they completely change it. It's like nature adaptation. It's like I've become a different species because I split off from my regular species on this island and I've moved. And it's just, I know, kid, I feel the same way. Yes, exactly. It's cry-worthy. Yes. And I think the writing in book 6, they tried to fix it with adding that scene in for the Burrow, and shows Ginny running after Harry. And I was like, well, that's Ginny's character there for a second, but it's completely added in. And then the scene didn't make sense because why would everybody but Voldemort
it's a terrible, terrible
show
scene.
up? Voldemort doesn't show up even though they know Harry's going to be there, and they set the Burrow on fire. Where are all the protections? Anyways, that's all to say, we better get a better version of Ginny because that character deserves it a lot.
Give Ginny lines.
Yes.
If nothing else, just give her more lines.
Yeah. That would be great.
You can't act well if you're not even in anything and you don't have anything to say.
I would also say the things that I want to see from characters, I would like to see all of Dumbledore in the first 2 movies with Richard Harris's version, which is very faithful, I feel, to the first 2 books. We get very light, whimsical, calm, grandfatherly Dumbledore. When Michael Gambon takes on, we get mysterious, powerful Dumbledore, but less kindness. And I want to see John Lithgow, and I'm sure he'll do a great job, but I want to see, and the writers give him this ability to do this, I want to see all of those things, that Dumbledore has in his toolbox, in the way that he goes about his life, rather than just kind of side pinning the character. And that's to say I want the same thing for all of the main characters. I feel like as we go on, Alan Rickman and Snape get a lot more nuance, but Hagrid becomes sort of pigeonholed into one sort of idea. McGonagall gets pigeonholed into one sort of idea. Lupin kind of never shows back up again. I want to see the balance of those main characters as we move forward, and then their characterization not becoming so static.
I would agree that, but also, see, it's kind of hard to, at the moment, listeners, we're looking at the doc, and right now we're in the section that's what do we want to see, and then later on we have a section what do we not want to see, it's kind of hard to talk about this because it's really you can flip those two things to mean different things, right? Because I also want to see a balance in the main characters, but what I don't want to see is I want Harry to remain the main character and the focus of the show. I don't necessarily think that we can't stray from him at times, and I think HBO does with all of the shows that I mentioned earlier that I like. There's still clearly like in The Last of Us, Joel and Ellie are still the main characters. Yeah. But there are entire episodes that don't focus on them, and I think that's fine. They still right. They still remain the main characters. But what I hate, the reason I hate the third movie so much, the third Prisoner of Azkaban so much, the movie, it's my least favorite movie in the series, is because that movie should be called Hermione Granger and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Because Alfonso Cuarón loved Hermione to a kind of somewhat creepy point, in my opinion, as a character. And he took all of the moments that Harry stands out as the hero at the end of the Prisoner of Azkaban book, other than the Expecto Patronum moment, which is fantastic in that movie. He took all these moments and gave them to Hermione, making Harry look like some bumbling sidekick to her. And I hate that. So I want the characters to be balanced, like Sam said, but I don't want anyone to take away from anyone else just because. Yeah, I agree. Or because they feel like they haven't had enough of like, you know, like I can really see a situation where they start to push certain characters because maybe what gender they are or whatever, and we haven't had enough just as female empowerment for a couple episodes. Let's have Hermione do this instead of Harry or whatever, just as an example. So I don't want that kind of stuff. And like you said, Sam, it's all about balance. Yeah. Absolutely. And if they have the correct balance, I think they can leave Harry's point of view, absolutely, which is later on in the doc as well. I think that's great, but I think balance needs to happen, but we also can't lose focus of the main plot either. We don't need to have multiple episodes in a row that have nothing to do with anything that was in the books. So, you know, it's about balance, 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 balance. Agreed.
Yeah, I don't think we'll need to... I think there is enough in the books that has... You know, Harry is involved, but also it has a character development for one of the adults that we don't have to actually invent anything that much new or stray too far away. Like for example,
you don't have to, but will they?
We don't have to. Well, that's true. Like for example, leaving in the bit where Hagrid has his big meltdown after he's being outed as a half giant. You know, that shows that whole bit shows a lot about Harry's character and lets Hagrid grow. So I hope they keep that kind of stuff instead of feeling like, oh, let's make a dedicated Hagrid episode and, I don't know, invent something extra for him that we don't necessarily need and doesn't add anything.
See where I agree with that, but I also think that like one of the things that I like that The Last of Us has done, and I'm sorry to keep going back to it, but I think it's just like the greatest thing on TV right now.
It's great. You just have to watch it.
You do need to watch it, but you should play both games first. But one of the things that they do is the beginning of almost not every episode, but the beginning of a lot of episodes is something. And again, the reason I think that The Last of Us is such a perfect adaptation is it takes a story that is already beloved by many, many, many people, and it twists it on its head at times in a way that seems plausible within the main original story. So there is backstory and there are scenes in the show that were never in the video game, but it absolutely adds to the lore in the video game in a way that it could have almost happened, but just in off screen. So if we have things like that, like we have moments in the show where it's from the perspective of the minister having a meeting, or it's from the perspective of Hagrid in his hut doing something or whatever. I can't think of an example right now. Something Voldemort doing something in the later seasons that is the opening scene. And we, as the readers, know what's happening, but we never saw that in the book. Yeah. But it technically could have happened, or it just wasn't something we were there. Then they have a little scene, and then you pop back into where Harry is at currently. That kind of stuff I think is perfect. Adding something stupid like the burrow burning down, that kind of stuff we don't need.
Yeah.
To that point specifically, Patrick, I think the adding of lore that does not change what happened in the books. That is an add-on only and not a takeaway or a change is key to leaving Harry's perspective. I think, right, getting thoughts into Dumbledore and McGonagall and Snape in movie 4, we get them discussing why Harry is going to stay in the Triwizard Tournament. And I think that is a perfectly acceptable leave from Harry's perspective, something that was not in the books, and it adds in a nice and coherent way. The Burrow scene is the exact opposite. But I would like them to move into Ron and Hagrid's perspective when Ron gets bit by Norbert. That, I think, it would be a fine time to shift over to Harry's perspective. Giving more moments into what Snape and Voldemort's occlumency and legitimacy moments look like, I think would be really interesting and fascinating. I think Dolores Umbridge, seeing her order the Dementors in a flashback when she's explaining what happened would be really important. Those type of things where we just move a bit outside of Harry. I'm not saying do a whole episode where we're and I just, in terms of what I do not want to see, I don't want to see the Fly episode from Breaking Bad, where it's a very typical TV thing to do, where you put major characters in one setting the entire time and they just are there. That doesn't happen in Harry Potter, and I would rather not see it in this show. And I don't want them doing that with other characters where we're well, I don't need all of this information. And I'm scared that if you do an episode like that, for example, we do a whole Hagrid grow up episode of what it is to come back. That could be cool, but the longer that episode goes, the more opportunity they have to really put in something that messes up Hagrid completely. And especially in today's day and age of short media with TikTok and Instagram and Reels and YouTube Shorts and all that stuff, where people are dissecting minutia moments, you have to be so careful about the continuity that, if you say one thing about Grope and Hagrid on the way down, people are going to take that and dissect it and go, well, actually, the most likely scenario that would be this, and therefore Hagrid should be dead, or Hagrid should be invisible, or Hagrid should have been eaten by Grope, and they're going to do stuff like that. So I think you can seldomly do it. You might even do it once an episode, but it's got to be additive only to increase what we already know and see how things played out, rather than being complete change.
Yeah, I think a really easy and interesting way to do that would be to have the full scene that Harry ends up overhearing the last 3 sentences of. Because there's so many of those scenes in the books where, Harry coming across, Snape and Karkaroff discussing the dark marks. And he shows up right at the end of that conversation. Have the whole conversation. You can add in that context of what was happening and then show Harry seeing only the end of it.
Hagrid and Dumbledore talking about the roosters in Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah. Things like that where when Harry, almost every time Harry goes up to Dumbledore's office and he's having a conversation with somebody and Harry overhears the last 2 sentences through the door, those types of things, you can very easily expand that into a scene.
So you can sort of move the point of view is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. And then even things you mentioned Hagrid and Gropp coming down. Don't even do that. Actually show Hagrid and Maxime meeting the giants. Have that sequence of them actually there instead of sitting in Hagrid's hut telling us about it.
Yes, love it.
Show don't tell. Exactly.
Don't tell.
So I think that there's a really, really easy ways to do exactly what we're talking about.
One of the main ways that we're about to talk about storylines that don't make it in the original films, and one of your number one picks is the entire Crouch family drama. And I feel like the entire Crouch family drama is something you could easily set up. You know how a lot of TV shows do this? You'll have not the penultimate, but the one right before. So the third to last episode of the season. So Harry goes through the entire graveyard scene. He ends up out. He brings his way in, and then Winky comes in to start explaining, and the Veritaserum gets put into Barty Crouch Jr., and you cut there. Then the next episode is not even with them.
Yeah.
This is classic TV. You just move entirely to an entire episode that is about Barty Crouch Jr. and Barty Crouch Sr.'s whole family drama and what that leads up to. And then at the very end of the episode, you cut back
exactly
to the end of where Barty Crouch Jr. has revealed everything, and it sets up with suspense the final.
So I think
show.
one of the things I agree. I think that would be great. But I think one of the things that might need to happen with the show is some of the mystery that happens in the books is let go instead for drama of things unfolding. So imagine this, right? Imagine episode 8 of season 2 or whatever, Chamber of Secrets season starts, goes through the music, that it fades in and you see whoever plays Lockhart. To me, I'm thinking the guy who maybe played Jaime Lannister in Game of Thrones as Lockhart.
Oh yeah.
You see him in his private chambers. He's the only person in there. The music is very dark. He's looking at himself in the mirror. It's really dark, right? You can see the camera pans in on his reflection in the mirror. It's super sad, like dark, and like you're like, what's going on? And then he puts on his fake smile, turns around, walks through the door. The episode starts then with Harry and them sitting in class, and he walks in like his normal smarmy self he's been the entire season so far. But we're not stupid. Yeah. We know Lockhart's an idiot the entire time. So having things like that, I'm not saying you have to have every single sentence from the book in every single episode, but things like that maybe take away from the mystery, like you're talking about with the Cole Crouch thing. Like in the book, you don't know that Barty Crouch Jr. is there the whole time, but maybe we do know that in the show the entire season. Like, don't have the change. They did it really well. This is not an HBO show, but on Netflix with the series of unfortunate events. The way they played with your expectations in that show was literally like it literally made that show from like A tier to S tier. The entire show, you think one thing's happening because you read the books, and you get to the end and you realize, oh no, something else was happening the whole time. So I'm not saying they have to do that with Harry Potter. Harry Potter's not necessarily about that. But we know Lockhart's a schmuck the entire time. So there's no mystery necessarily, and maybe that's a bad example, but like Barty Crouch. Like in the movie, they just straight up showed us Barty Crouch the entire time, so it shouldn't have been a shock at the end.
Yeah, which was kind of a bummer.
Yeah, they ruined that movie, though.
Right. Instead, do something clever with the writing to give us a twist, but a twist we as book people wouldn't necessarily see coming. And that would allow us to experience some Barty Crouch Jr. things throughout the season that would be fun little things that they could throw in there that we knew happened. And it wouldn't all have to be just in the last final episode after they've revealed him.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's true.
So that way you can play with again, I think Series of Unfortunate Events did it so flippin' brilliantly, but also The Last of Us did it brilliantly as well. If you know the story of Bill from The Last of Us, when you see the Billstown episode, the way they changed what actually happened made it better. And I think that if HBO does this kind of thing really good, just setting up a scene, setting up a character, there doesn't even have to be dialogue in it. Like imagine in the final scene when Snape is running Hogwarts, in the final season, when Snape is the headmaster of Hogwarts. Imagine a scene like I described with Lockhart, but Snape, right? He's standing there looking in front of a mirror. See, it's tough though, because they have to maintain that. They have to maintain the Snape mystery, right? The reveal that he, with him and Lily and everything, that's integral to the story.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, I think HBO, one of the things they do so well with their shows is atmosphere. And you can have scenes that mean so much out of context of the initial story that the adaptation is just adding so much to it. And so the fact that this is HBO, I do think they can do it.
To your point, though, Patrick, I think one of the interesting things that they could do, again, this is me pitching to be on the writing team, just in case anybody's listening. No, I'm kidding. Although I would love that. But you could start without showing Snape. You could start with the beginning of every episode, the last 8 episodes of season 10, should we get there. You could start teasing moments of Lily's childhood. Right, where you have where without showing Snape, right,
exactly.
And that's what, getting away from Harry's perspective. You start building the audience's anticipation of like, wait, why? Because the mystery then
the whole
becomes
time
why
you think it's
showing...
James, but it's Lily, maybe or something like that. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or you know what I'm saying.
Yes,
so,
100%.
I mean, yeah, you take Petunia's line of that horrible boy, or, that it was that boy who told her all these things, because so long you think it's James. And then the reveal is that it's Snape. You just take that and expand on it, of flashes of Petunia and Lily talking about that boy and things like that. And then it's the reveal that it's Snape and not James or somebody else. I think, that would be a great way to bring those types of things in. I think just kind of going on more of the like storylines that didn't make it into the original stuff. I think any of that really is great ways to get out of Harry's perspective, but also to bring interesting thing in. If you have some interesting ones in here, that would be great.
Yeah, if I wanted to add anything that didn't make it into original films, I think it would be the parts that you might argue that they're not integral, but if they make the character more well-rounded, I think that would improve the show. So things like Spew, and I think, Merope Gaunt has to be in there to give all the Voldemort backstory instead of just some of it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I even need to say Marauders, because it'll be shocking if they do the same thing to Marauders as Alfonso Cuarón did in the third movie. I don't really understand how they could skip them,
because they're not important.
Do you agree? Do you agree?
No, I don't. I don't think they're important to the story of the movies, the way they chose to tell them. I do think they're important to the story of the books. The way they chose
to tell them, sure.
But I don't think that we're really missing that much from not having the Marauder story there. But I would like it there, but I don't think that we were missing very much without them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the way the reason this is a TV show is so that we can have those things in this.
Exactly.
For sure.
My problem with that is I'm afraid that they are going to hear the echo chamber of the Marauders are the greatest people on the planet, and we're going to have way too much Marauders. That's the thing I get afraid of.
I'm also afraid of that.
I think there's so many things that people are looking forward to, and they're not going to be able to please everybody. For sure, especially with like inclusions, because even though they're making these, instead of 2 hours, it's 8 hours of content, and they can fit a lot more in. However, there's at some point they're gonna have to cut stuff.
But they can slow the pace down, and I think that's important.
See, that's almost more. That's what I want: a slower pace, not necessarily more story. I just want a slower pace. I think that's important.
Well, and they should be able to do, and pacing is so different, right? We're talking about a slower pace than what the movies do, and yet the TV show should still be properly paced for that episode. So it might be that you get a fast-paced TV episode, and yet the pacing overall of the story is slower than the movies.
Yes.
That's what we mean by that comparison. At the same time, in terms of these sort of storylines that we say that we'd like, that you and Ev talked about having in here, is like, we got Spew, Marauders, Merope Gaunt, Crouch Family Drama, Other Minister, other things like the Death Day Party, all things that I feel like can absolutely be in there. In fact, the Marauders, I would argue, is fairly essential to the actual overall story, especially when we get to book 7, because we have these drastic comparisons of the 6 characters in the Marauders kind of era, and then the 6 characters in the Harry era, where we've got the Golden Trio. And then we've got Neville, who, looks and sounds and acts like Peter Pettigrew. We've got Lily reflected in Ginny, and we've got Snape reflected in Luna. And so to not have that, I think actually gets away from sort of the soul of the story. Merope Gaunt is so important to show Voldemort's humble sort of beginnings and why, and the how Salazar Slytherin's ideals do not lead to success. They lead to the Gaunt family. Spew is essential to Hermione's character and understanding where she goes after the movies, and how her justice is not hypocritical, that it is, however annoying some people might find it, it is very sort of, what's it called? not hypocritical, but consistent. It's consistent with her character. The Crouch family drama, essential. The Other Minister, a really nice way to take a break from the main story and get context on the Muggle world, right? So all those things can be done, but in order to adapt the entire books, all the books, right? You would normally say a screenplay, 1 page of a screenplay is 1 minute. It's about, I think, like 3 to 5 minutes of an actual book, 1 page, depending on font size and such, to what translates to on screen. So you're right. There's no way everything's going to get done. It's impossible. They would have to make something that would take 70 years to film if they did all of that.
Yeah. But they do have the advantage that the previous adaptation didn't have, that all the books are there.
All the books are out. So, that'll be a huge help.
So they can look at the whole story and make some kind of a decision on what they want to focus on. So hopefully they can focus on more things because they have more time, but they can't accidentally drop something important because they didn't know it was going to become important 2 books later.
Yes. So we'll get Julie Andrews playing Mrs. Fig in the first movie.
It's really interesting having this conversation because I think some of the stuff we're talking about is totally possible. Like The Other Minister, that can literally just be the opening of an episode. That's not a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Having Spew is going to be really tough from a practical standpoint because this is a TV show, yes. But if they're only going to put 1 year, if there's supposed to be 1 season of this every year for 10 years, they cannot spend an entire year then making the CG that would be required to do
the house elves, all the house elves in the kitchen.
So that's if they never, for example, I could see a way where they would. That's tough though, because I do think we have to have Dobby in more than just season 2.
Yes. Yeah.
Dobby will have to be there more. So there has to be a reason for Dobby to be there. So that logically, then you would have to have him working at Hogwarts, which means there have to be other house elves. I don't personally think that Winky's story is super important. And I don't think that
I disagree, but that's fine.
I do think it's important.
It's fine.
It's important, but it's not essential. And that was proved by the fact that the movie makes sense. But
I disagree that movie makes sense, but that's fine.
Well, I don't like those movies either. I'm not fighting that they're wonderful or there's a perfect adaptation. I don't think the house elves, again, it depends it's so tough because would I love everything to be in there? Yes. What I don't want is unnecessary focus on one particular thing that would then pull the focus away from something else. Like, I think you're absolutely right. The Gaunt stuff all needs to be there because it's important that we understand Voldemort, something that I don't think was achieved in the movies at all. I don't even personally necessarily think that was achieved very well in the books either. I think Voldemort's backstory is really lacking, in my opinion, in the books. And so I think that they have an opportunity here to give us a little bit more of that and less of this unimportant stuff, like I think Spew would kind of be. I think it's important for Hermione's character, but Hermione's not the main character. So, and again, that's why I say it's tough because it's like, would I want everything? Yes. Is everything practical? Thinking about like CG and stuff? No. But I think that I could see ways that they can do it. It all depends on if the writing's good. It's what it all comes back to. Yeah, if the writing is good, they can make anything work. If it's bad or it's lazy or they have different people and it's inconsistent, then there's no hope for all this to be so wonderful.
It's difficult because with a thing like Spew, that is one of Hermione's major sort of side quests that's going on.
Yes.
In that book. And in the movie, what they end up making Hermione's main side quest is being an owl between Harry and Ron. So just kind of showing everybody that it's hard to be a friend between two friends that are fighting. And then a little bit of a support person, and that's it. They do a little bit of Ron and Hermione, obviously, with the Yule Ball, but she doesn't get actually a lot of screen time as compared to, as you were saying, Patrick, Prisoner of Azkaban. And so I feel like Hermione's story is really lacking in movie 4. So there's all sorts of things that we need to go
in book
in and
4,
out of.
though, the more important story is the relationship between Harry and Ron. So you have to focus on that and show that should be it should feel very different in season 4 when Ron's not there than the 3 previous seasons. And yes, I think they can fit Spew in there somewhere, but I just think that is, you have to look at it realistically. You have to have certain things in order for the story that they're going to tell to make sense. And there are just superfluous things in the books that don't need to be there, and again, I don't mean to pick on Spew, just because I do think that's an interesting thing. Point. And also, if Spew is there as if Spew is there as a analogy or whatever for whatever you think Spew is about, that might not pertain to it anymore. It's interesting and tough. You know what I mean?
I think they could have it as a kind of a non-focused thing as well. They could just have bits where while Harry and Ron are doing something else, Hermione is
knitting a
out
hat
and knitting lots of hats and leaving lots of hats. And we see those hats and we see her like with the box trying to sell those like badges for people to join the Spew. So it could be still kind of handled, but not be the main focus. So we kind of know, Hermione is going through her activist thing. Right. And so I think it could still work if the writing is good, like you said.
Right. And it also goes back again to who are they making this for? Yeah. If they're making this more for people like us, we already understand and know the story. They can put stuff in there and we understand it. Mm-hmm. If they have to dumb everything down to new people who've never heard of Harry Potter, then they have to include explanations for all of these things. Yeah. And so a lot of it does come back to who are they making this for?
Hello, dear listeners. We are getting towards the end of our podcast, and we have realized there is just so much more that we would like to discuss. Essentially, we're going to end the podcast. We're going to get through a couple of more things, and then we're going to close it up. If you would like to hear more about this subject from us, though, please comment on the episode on our website or go to Instagram and comment on the Instagram release. Mm-hmm. We would love to hear from you guys. Tell us if you'd like to hear more. And for now, we're going to move into what we do not want to see.
Okay, so my main thing that I don't want to see, and some people might disagree with me strongly, is that I don't want it to be all gritty, dark, depressing cinematography from the word go. I want the balance between the light and the dark, which I think the books do so well. And I also think that if you go too dark too soon or too much, then it takes away from the gravity of certain storylines because you've just been you've been kind of overexposed to it all. So I think what books do so well is they kind of let you breathe in between the very intense dark moments and maybe lighter, more kind of contemplative or slice of life or outright funny. The books continue to have funny moments all the way through. It doesn't stop after the first 2. Right. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't know how they're going to do that, but, they are the professionals. So they have presumably done this before. So I am hoping that they can get the balance right between the light and the dark. And they don't just pick, okay, we're doing, like for a while there was this big fashion on we're doing superheroes but dark. Like I don't want Harry Potter but dark.
Yes,
that's my main thing.
I want a death every episode.
Every episode. You might get one. It's really easy to show the Acromantula eating centaurs, so sure. Maybe we'll just do that every episode. So Ev, the way that you phrased it now, I 100% agree with you. In the doc, I thought you were saying you didn't want to see any gritty, dark, depressing cinematography, and I was like, what? Not at all.
No. That's not what I meant. I thought you didn't understand me either, so that's why I thought I'd elaborate.
So, the DC Time Warner Brothers sort of decision on superheroes but dark was a direct reaction to Marvel's superheroes, but bright and happy. And so they were like, you know what, we're gonna do Dark Knight, but even darker, because Christopher Nolan's adaptations were the first two anyways, were so successful. I don't think there's any way that we're gonna get that. I think Hogwarts Legacy showed a really good blueprint on, hey, let's when things are cozy and wonderful, let's make it feel cozy and wonderful. And when things are dark, let's show it be really dark. And I think as the movies grow, we see that happen as well. So it will get darker as we go along, but only as called for. So like, I don't want Teletubbies rocking around the cave while they're trying to get the potion out. I want to see
I don't think
dark and gritty.
That.
Yeah. Okay, good. Just making sure we're on the same page.
Well, honestly, though, I mean,
absolutely.
That's not out of the question, depending on how who they're making this for. You know, when they fight the troll in the bathroom, should that be scary, or should it be something an 11-year-old could enjoy?
It should be scary.
I agree. And I think both. Right. It should be whimsical as well at the same time. But see, I think we are all, I said earlier that HBO likes to do, they want to introduce you in the first episode to the extremes that this show is going to probably go to. So I'm pretty sure we are all in agreement that the show is going to start with the scene of Lily and James dying.
James being murdered. Yeah.
Right.
I would hope so.
And they filmed that for the first movie. That was how the first movie was supposed to start. And they filmed that scene. Yeah. So that they can do that. HBO can follow their trend of doing that and just have the beginning of the very first thing we see should be a very scary, very sad, very dramatic scene that then goes into Harry and the Dursleys, which should always be presented as whimsical and slightly dark, but at the same time, like, we need to hate the Dursleys. They shouldn't give us sympathy for the Dursleys and all this baloney stuff. Like,
I agree.
So I think if they do that and they allow that beginning to be as dark as it can be within reason, then they'll set expectations right, and every episode should have a good balance. Exactly what you were saying, Ev.
If you think of Lord of the Rings, that's kind of how it starts. They kind of show you all the awful stuff, and then they give you Shire, and in a way that almost like, oh, they don't know what's coming, you know.
Also, Ev, the more you talk about stuff, the more I'm like, you really need to watch The Last of Us. Because exactly everything you're describing is exactly what it is. Plus, I honestly think it's probably the best adaptation of anything that's ever been, with maybe the exception being the Lord of the Rings movies. But anyway,
the Three Broomsticks, brought to you by HBO and The Last of Us. We're a walking commercial.
It's kind of the theme of the episode, you know.
Yeah. For real. Man, let's not title this episode HBO's The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, because that will be, it's season 2 is literally called Part 2. So, yeah.
Okay. Moving forward, what are other things that we hope not to see?
We touched on this a little bit, but I just want to reiterate invented situations.
Yeah.
There's enough content to fill twice the amount of screen time we're being promised. We don't need to add new things that don't happen. It's like my biggest pet peeve in any adaptation. I'm like, I get that you have to cut things, but like, don't fill the time with something that isn't there. Like the first task. Why?
Oh my God, the first task.
Why?
The first task is exciting enough without having the dragon get loose.
You could have spent the CG budget on that dragon flying on having house elves. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Like,
that's yes.
Come on. Like, there's plenty of other things. We did not need a dragon flying around for 10 minutes.
5 minutes would have been fine.
Harry and Voldemort falling off a tower together. Come on. The way that it is great. Why change it?
But the symbolism of how they're one soul. The symbolism of Sari separating himself out literally from Voldemort is so on the nose. It was disgusting.
How about just the literal... But it's not on the nose because you don't have one. Okay, but the literal... the literal, like, love conquers thing. Like, come on. That's the point. Like, let's stick with the point. Mm-hmm. Don't have new things. That's end of rant.
Here's something I don't want to see. Flashbacks just so that you can show characters that become popular. Don't do that. Real. We do not need to see tons of flashbacks to the Marauders or whoever. Like, it's entirely possible that people love this actor who's playing Snape, and so they're like, we need more Snape. Give us more Snape. Give us as much Snape as we can have. So there's flashbacks of Snape during the First World War. Or during the First Wizarding War. There's flashback to Snape when he was a kid throughout the whole thing. Like, I could see that being interesting and fun if they did it right, but we don't need unnecessary flashbacks to everything that is ever mentioned in the book.
Yeah.
You're telling me that you don't want to see Nymphadora Tonks and Charlie going out on their first date and making out at Madame Puttyfoot's?
No.
Oh, okay.
Now,
I'm with you. I agree.
I'm all for more visits to Hogsmeade. I'm all for that. I want to see. I want to see more of the world. You know.
I want to see Harry's disastrous date.
Oh, please.
Yes.
That'll definitely be in there. I'm
Actually,
sure.
that I would do as a fly episode where it's just Harry and Cho for 30 minutes in Madame Puttyfoot's. And it's just a teenage awkward angst.
See, now that's an example of where you could do that. Like, you could have that episode start in Madame Puttyfoot's, and she's like baking the cakes that they eat later or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah,
that's a good example of something that could be added. Here's a question. I don't write anything in the docs because you guys can tell already that I like just having a conversation and talking. We haven't talked about this at all. We really haven't talked about any production stuff at all. What if they decide to include modern music in the show instead of just using like classical music or like score?
I'm fine if it's set in the 90s. I want it to be all music that would be there up until the 90s. So if you're gonna, like, Star Wars at one point included dubstep in an episode in The Mandalorian, and I didn't hate it, but a lot of people did. And I would say if you're gonna do something like dubstep in Harry Potter, it's got to be 90s specific. We're talking about trance and EDM music out of Europe in the 90s.
Right.
Fine. If we're talking about adding Led Zeppelin in, okay, fine. If we're doing 70s music or classical music, all of that's fine with me as long as it fits what's going on. I still prefer a full orchestral for the main majority of the music, and then you bring in other things as needed. And I would rather it be that than like what's it called? That wonderful Ewan McGregor movie, Moulin Rouge, where it's just like a bunch of different songs and need like full musical. I'm good.
Yeah, I don't.
I
Think
also don't need
that.
a musical episode of Harry Potter. Just an FYI.
Okay, I just had an idea. I would love
Darren
a
Criss.
Bridgerton style score where it's score, but it's like like they do current music, but I would want 90s music as like orchestral.
Smells like Teen Spirits, but in orchestral.
Yes. That's what I would
Backstreet
love
Boys,
that. That would be so fun because it took me until I think the second season of Bridgerton to realize that they did that. So like if you do it right, like you can hide that it's 90s music. It still gives you that vibe and you still can kind of have the idea. But then by the time you get to key moments, like this is just one example, but in Bridgerton season 3, there is a moment where a character, I'm not going to spoil just in case, but like a character walks out and it is to an orchestral version of A, B, C, D, E, F, U. And it is perfect. It is perfect because it is her FU moment, basically. Yeah. And so, like, I think that if you start doing something similar to that, you could make it, like, emphasizing certain points if you wanted to. I don't think it should be the whole thing. I don't think that should be all the music that they play. But I think that like, a song, an episode or something where it's, like, a 90s song that is then that fits with the rest of the score. Okay,
what about what HBO does? They did it in True Blood, which I forgot is also one of my favorite shows of all time. In True Blood, they've done it in The Last of Us. What if every episode ends with a existing like pop culture song that is relevant lyrically or whatever thematically to the episode and the contents of the episode, and then that's the credits music during. HBO likes to do that, but then the rest of it is mostly score.
I will only accept that if on the episode where they go and see the Acromantula, they go and take the end credit song from Arachnophobia, which is a song that somebody created about a spider saying, "Please don't squish me." So if they do that, I'm fine.
I mean, we could have No Doubt's song "Spiders." That would work. But you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that they could do something like that. That is an HBO thing.
Yeah.
Do we all think that they're going to stick with the like glockenspiel type, like the similar sounding scores for the movies, or like they did with Hogwarts Legacy, like reminiscent of that, but not exactly the same?
Yeah, I think they'll do that with the costumes and the settings and the music.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Okay. So if I kind of agree, but I personally would love it if they did the HBO ending. There's like a song at the end of every episode when the like dramatic moment happens, and there's a bit of a cliffhanger, and then the song relates to thematically to what's happening there, and then that's the credits music.
I could get behind that.
Yeah. Okay. Just a thought.
Mm-hmm. I think it would just be so key to not only fit thematically, but also just tone.
Yeah,
in
for
general.
Sure. Yeah.
Because 90s music is 90s.
For sure.
The worst decade of music.
There are many thoughts that we could have about this, including addressing Patrick's comment that that's the worst decade of music. But I would argue it's the 1690s, not the 1990s. But that's fine. We can talk about that later. Moving on to the last little bit here. What do we think we will see? Not hope. But what do you think we'll see, regardless of how we feel?
An abundance of diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hope so. And
do you mean beyond what's in the books already?
Yes. I think intentional diversity. And I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing, but we already discussed that a little bit earlier. It could very easily become a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think more often than not that intentional diversity is an upgrade, but I hear your point.
I think we'll see callbacks to the movies hidden around or very blatant.
Well, if they're using the same sets.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think like they could even have something allude to other things, but I think more professors, more ghosts, more classroom time in general.
Other ages of students just milling around. I think that would be important.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll see new invented characters, unfortunately. I just think that's something that will occur. And sometimes it's not even that bad. I think thematically it works well for Prisoner of Azkaban when we have that random kid in divination reading darkly.
It's like catching smoke. It's like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands.
Yeah, that guy.
That would be a fun Easter egg if they brought him to say exactly the same thing.
That would be so funny. He's just a ghost now floating around giving eerie.
Here's what I don't want them to drop the entire point system. I want them to lean into that even harder and find ways to incorporate it in there that actually make sense. Forget what the points were in the books. Literally disregard everything about the points in system in the books, which was done poorly, I think, throughout the entire thing. Actually make it have some sort of a reason for being there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they'll probably overdo it and make it into something that it's not to try to sell little cases of jewels or some kind of crap like that.
Then I think we're going to see recasts happen no matter what. 10 years is a long time. People don't always survive those 10 years. And I'm not even just talking about John Lithgow, who's old. And I really, really hope I'm not trying to drive him into the grave by prophesying evil, as my mother used to say. But, I think we'll see recasts, whether it's somebody like Colin Creedy or, contract doesn't work out. Or even at the end of Game of Thrones, they were introducing this new character, Darius, I think, who goes on to be with Daenerys. And they introduce him. And then the next season, it's a completely different guy. And that is going to happen with some characters no matter what. And maybe they won't be noticeable, but maybe they will.
Well, and also in today's day and age, someone could get accused of assault at any moment, and then you got to recast them.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they even had to recast, some of the Slytherins because of
they literally just wrote Goyle out, right?
They just wrote him out and had what we assume is supposed to be not, I guess, but who
Blaze
the heck knows?
Beanie?
Yeah.
Maybe.
String bean guy.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the beanie?
Blaze?
No, different
No,
guy?
they have Blaze in there, but they wrote him out and then had he's just they never name him. He's just this really skinny white guy with sandy blonde hair. So, like, I think people just kind of assumed he was supposed to be cute
it's
or
a
not.
Crab, I think.
But
Crab
that's
got,
it.
because he got in
He had
trouble.
some
Oh, it was
issues.
Crab. Yeah, it was Crab who got recast.
So anything could happen.
Do you guys think that there will be a concerted effort to show more same-sex couples throughout the show?
I think in general, there will be efforts there to update for a 2025 audience, which includes making sure that all people are recognized, that they exist. So maybe not a concentrated effort in the way that people would want to see, but I think we'll see more of that than we did in the original films, because we're 20 years past that.
Mm-hmm.
So the way we're going to see it is, I can see it right now. So Yule Ball, when Snape is outside blasting the bushes.
Blasting couples apart, yeah.
They could show every conceivable type of couple as he's blasting the bushes.
Yep. That's a great way to do it. That would totally make sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think there will be a conceded? We already had this conversation. Do you think there will be a specific effort to show that Dumbledore is gay?
I don't know. Because they were so tepid about doing it in the Fantastic Beasts series, and it doesn't come up in the books at all. So it might be that they show it, especially in part 7. They might film more elements of Grindelwald and him being together. But they were really tepid. Warner Brothers was really tepid about introducing it at all, just because they didn't want to lose money. So I think cowardice might lead them to not do that. But also, who knows?
I mean, they could just lean in harder into Book Dumbledore in the sense of, it just the kind of clothing he was into that was quite fun, and his knitting patterns and that kind of thing. Not explicitly. I don't know.
I think leaning into the quirkiness of his character is more important.
That kind of thing, and that could be interpreted either way. And I think this is how it should be.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not saying we're technically in the things we don't want to see category now. I'm not saying we don't want to see that. I'm just saying
no, we're in the what we think we'll see.
Oh, that's right. We're winding down, and so I just feel like there's certain things we should address in case we don't do another episode of this, or if I die during my transplant and never get the chance to talk about it again.
Oh my God, Patrick! Please don't let that happen.
Well, try
Dear
not
Lord.
to.
Okay, sorry, I derailed us for a second. Focus.
Well, with that, we're going to end the podcast.
And not my life.
No, I'm kidding. Please, yes. No ending of Patrick's life. So we love you too much, bud.
Hey, there's always GTA 6 to play. I can't die yet. GTA 6 is a thing on the
hold
horizon.
on for GTA 6. That's the thing.
Not this stupid HBO show.
Today, for the 7 ingredients of today's special, we're talking about the 7 different times Patrick alluded to him having... I'm kidding. No, not at all. So the 7 ingredients of today's special are the 7 different stages of excitement that you can have for the show, starting with me at super excited, and then there's excited, cautiously optimistic, neutral, cautiously pessimistic, really don't like it at all, and then Patrick's 7th level of hell.
It shouldn't
just
even
don't want it to happen in any way,
even
shape,
exist.
or form. It shouldn't happen. Can it right now? So there it is. Our 7 ingredients of today's special. So, Ev.
Yes.
What's playing on the jukebox today?
Well, we don't have any wizard rock for you today because I didn't think any would really apply for this. Although we were talking about music a little bit, and I did want to bring up Hedwig's theme by John Williams. So, are they going to use it? Are they going to allude to it like they kind of did in Fantastic Beasts to sort of tie it all together? Are they going to ignore it entirely and start fresh? We'll just have to wait and see.
I think it'll be in motifs. It will show up as motifs, but not a full song.
I think the whole show is going to be drenched in it.
Soaked in Hedwig's theme.
Soaked in the blood of a dead Hedwig.
Give me that celeste, that glockenspiel. Give me that harpsichord. Give me all that good stuff. Any instrument with a fast transient and a fast decay, and you got dun 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 dun, and you're good. It's going to be everywhere.
Did you hear that, Sierra? I managed to get a dead Hedwig joke in.
I
just
did
for you.
hear. I did. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Speaking of thanks, a big thank you to Patrick for visiting the Three Broomsticks with us today.
Yes.
Lovely to have you here, Present Patrick.
Yes, thanks. I'm so happy that I could come and derail the conversation so many times.
It's fine. We derail ourselves. Your derail of our derail kept it on track. So there you go.
And you know who it hurts the most? You know who the derailing hurts the most? You know who 3 hour and 25-minute episodes hurts the most? No, not Hedwig.
Future Patrick.
It hurts. Yes, future Patrick having to edit this while balancing hospital visits and all this other things. So I hope all the listeners out there appreciate it and go join our Patreon and all those wonderful things. But before we get to that segment, though, I know usually you guys ask, is there anywhere that people can follow the guest?
Yes.
So for me, I am not a social media person really, so I don't have an Instagram or Twitter or X or whatever, Blue Notebook or whatever this new thing is. Like, I don't have any of that stuff, but I do have a YouTube channel that I've talked about here before, where I do music reaction content and things like that. But I want to say, if anybody is interested in following my journey through the recovery of the transplant, my plan is to post a lot of short videos and maybe some different things on my YouTube channel as I'm going through the process of recovery. So if anyone's interested in that, you can check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/Patrick Muselek. It's just my name. We'll have it in the show notes. It'll be places people can find it. If you want to forego all of that and just search for me on YouTube, you can search for my name, Patrick Muselek, which that's Musilek, Muselek like Mucinex. Or you can also search for Audio Engineers React. That's what a lot of my channel content is based around, the fact that we are audio engineers listening to music for the first time, like we just did the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. I heard that album for the very first time, was shocked at how incredible I thought it sounded. So there's Beatles, there's Metallica, there's Depeche Mode, there's all sorts of other things. If any of that sounds interesting, plus my journey through the recovery of this leukemia transplant process, check me out there. Thank you all so much.
Thanks so much for being with us today, Patrick.
Yeah. Maybe for the last time if I die.
No!
Stop! You're not gonna die. We're gonna hold God accountable.
You're really working on this whole 7 times you're going to bring it up. As the 7 ingredients thing.
You've caught me.
Well, and a huge thanks again to Katie Reekin, however you say your name, I apologize, who bought us this round of drinks at the Three Broomsticks. If you would like to buy us the next round, dear listener, please head over to patreon.com/Three Broomsticks. That's with the numeral 3 to sign up. Like we were talking about before, so much great content over there, always coming out with more stuff. So stay tuned for even more. You can also help by rating and reviewing us. That helps us be found. We like being found. And if you like our show, please don't forget to tell your friends. Word of mouth is often the most helpful thing that any source of content can have. So it helps us so much. We always love to see people coming around because of their friends. So tell everybody.
Yep.
Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. Just don't tell them how long our episodes are, and just get them to listen to them anyway. Get them hooked.
Unless they've got a long commute, then they can enjoy the long episodes.
Exactly. I enjoy long episodes, so yeah. And if you would like to see more about us, we have really stepped it up on social media. So you can find us on Twitter/X, Instagram, Facebook, and our assorted handles, and our email address, which you can also use to send us some comments, can be found on the episode description or on our website, which is threebroomstickspod.com with 3 spelled out. And so you can find links to anything we mentioned. If we did mention anything, there won't be links, but most of our episodes have something, especially the ones with Irvin. These ones have loads of essays. You can also submit a topic. You can let us know your thoughts. There's a comment section under every episode. So if you don't want to touch social media, which we completely understand, you can still interact with us and chat with us on the website or email us. Guys, you know what just occurred to me? Patrick is on our episode today, and well, obviously the episode is going to be released a fair while later, but it's being recorded a day before St. Patrick's Day.
Yes. Yay.
So, congrats.
Yes, thank you. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody out there.
Yeah.
And you know, shout out to my patron saint, Saint Vincent, as well. The patron saint of lost things. So shout out to him.
Oh, nice.
Saint Patrick, the wonderful English saint. He just happened to liberate the entire island of Ireland. Not he is English. So yeah,
and that is why we don't have snakes.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Never had them before. Still don't have them yet. So good job, St. Patty.
Never. No Slytherins there.
Apart from my husband.
They can import one every now and then.
Yeah.
Well, and that leads us to the next time that we meet at the Three Broomsticks, because we'll be discussing Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Chapter 6, Draco's Detour. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'm Sierra.
And I'm Ev.
I'm Sam. Thank you all for listening, and see you next time in the Three Broomsticks. Cheers!
Give me big old buckets of butterbeer. Give me big old barrels of butterbeer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here of the sweet old butterbeer.
This episode of The Three Broomsticks was edited by Patrick Musilek. The theme song was written and performed by The Faithful Sidekicks. Make sure to check them out at thefaithfulsidekicks.com.
Okay, wait, before everyone stops recording, hold on. Wait.
Okay.
Yes.
This is just for 1 minute for a blooper. Go to the Skype call so you can see me. Turn my video back on. Okay. Here's what I had for show and tell. We're not doing this anymore, obviously. We've been recording for 4 hours. Here is... Oh, shoot, the box just busted. Hold on. I'm going to find a way to do it. Here is... my series of all 11 of the Harry Potter books in Japanese.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah. Merry Christmas to me. You want to know how much this cost me?
$248,000.
$25 free shipping.
Wow.
From Japan.
Amazing.
Wow.
If you want to learn more about that, subscribe to us on Patreon and I'll tell you the secret. Just kidding. I won't. I will not. So anyway, there you go. There's the Order of the Phoenix Japanese version.
Very cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. Are you learning Japanese?
No, it's just a cool shelf thing, really, for me.
Nice.
I would love to know Japanese. Then I could watch anime without subtitles.
I'm Sierra Obermark.
I'm Harry Potter. Oh my god. Sorry.
Damn.
I was
You
reading
wish.
it. I do wish. I wish so bad.
Don't we all?
Oh, man. Heir to the fortune of a potion beauty maker and married to Ginny Weasley would be great. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I will just pick up from I'm Sam Williams.